With a tremendous market knowledge, Lombard provides superior customized insurance-based solutions to help individuals and institutions ensure their assets are protected, portable, and can be passed on. We have worked with Lombard since 1998 in a variety of capacities. No one performs better in this space than Lombard.
Today, we're excited to be joined by Sandy Jalen, whom I have known and worked with for 18 years. Sandy is an executive managing director at Lombard International. In this position, Sandy oversees the entire distribution team. He works with internal and external sales partners to execute business development opportunities across individual and institutional products, both domestically and internationally. Sandy is a CFA charter holder, licensed for life, variable products, and holds Series 7, 26, and 63 securities registrations.
Also joining today's panel is Tom Bozar. Tom is a Senior Managing Director of Strategic Initiatives. Tom works with asset managers, investors, and other client advisors to define possible performance improvement by capturing structural alpha associated with Lombard solutions. Tom is a former Wall Street lawyer and a recognized thought leader in tax-efficient investing. Tom is also a CFA charter holder and holds multiple other designations. With that, I'll turn the podium over to Sandy and Tom.
Great, thank you, Brandon and Jamie, for the kind introduction and for allowing us to participate in today's chat. And thank you all for joining. And hopefully this is either a refresher on private placement or an initial introduction, or just an opportunity to discuss further recent developments that have helped make this industry kind of more attractive than ever, I would say, in my 18 years of being with the firm. So just as Jamie and Brandon alluded to, a quick overview of Lombard. If you're not familiar with us, we are the largest private placement insurance carrier globally, as well as in the U.S. Our sole focus is on private placement structures, which are all generally designed to help various investors address the myriad of tax issues that arise with particular investments. Again, we have offices. We have about 60-some billion in assets currently, 500 employees working throughout the U.S. as well as Latin America, offices, headquarters in Luxembourg in Europe, then offices throughout Western Europe, and then Singapore and Hong Kong as well. We are currently owned by Blackstone's Tactical Opportunity Fund. Again, here's sort of the breadth of our market. Again, Tom and I focus primarily on U.S. Business as it relates to U.S. tax issues for both domestic and international clients. And I was going to give a kind of quick rundown of the individual structures and solutions that we provide to various high net worth individuals. And then Tom can speak to some recent developments within the market, as well as some of the applications that we see clients utilizing in their wealth and estate planning objectives. At a high level, so we actually offer 3 distinct private placement solutions for high net worth individuals that are, again, concerned with U.S. Federal, state, and local income taxes. The first is a private placement variable annuity. For those of you who are unfamiliar, it's really an investment-only annuity, just providing income tax deferral of the underlying investment gains. It's a very stripped down product, so annuity really in name only. We've never annuitized an annuity. It's a vehicle used to defer taxes. Similar to a super IRA, they can contribute as much money into the structure of the PPVA as you want, with whatever frequency. It's very flexible with respect to that. There are no surrender charges, there's no upfront charges. It's, again, really a way to access various investments that are generally more tax inefficient. So hedge funds, private credit, managed accounts, sort of the full, kind of smorgasbord of various investments that clients would like. But we get to, defer all the taxes and eliminate the K1s. And it's a fairly easy structure to implement. Often it's just filling out an application. It can be done within, a week's time, and it's pretty straightforward. That's the high level of the PPVA. Private placement life insurance is a bit more of a process. It is actual life insurance product. It's on a variable universal life chassis. They are generally designed to provide the minimum amount of death benefit to maximize the investment account growth of the underlying investment portfolio and minimizing all of the fees associated with that PPLI or the insurance component of the vehicle. Has the benefit of that's attributable to all variable universal life policies, namely the tax-deferred growth of the investment account and a tax-free and income tax-free death benefit that would get paid out to the beneficiary. With PPLI, there's often more planning around how to best structure that within the client's estate or outside the client's estate, and again, combine it with other planning applications that they're considering. Again, one of the primary benefits is the investment flexibility with respect to what the premium is invested in. The third structure that is unique to Lombard, we call it a catalyst PPLI. So and that works just like a normal PPLI policy. It has all the same tax attributes associated with PPLI. However, rather than with a traditional PPLI product where there is an underwriting component that the client has to go through, subject to a medical exam and acquiring, the right amount of insurance to make the contract qualify as life insurance, the Catalyst PPLI is able to use a client's existing insurance as the death benefit for the new Catalyst PPLI. So that allows the client to open up a PPLI product and invest in a tax-free manner, but without having to go through the underwriting process. So from an execution standpoint, it's much more akin to a PPVA, but it has all the tax attributes of a PPLI structure. So that is something we've been implementing for a couple of years now, and certainly for the right client, it's a pretty attractive tool to again access investments on a tax-free basis. To put a little bit more kind of numbers and sort of impact to the structures, here's sort of an example of the benefit of a variable annuity. Again, it's really just income tax deferral. It's a relatively low, low cost. You're looking at, maybe 50 basis points of 50 to 75 basis points of ongoing expense. But for that, you get the income tax deferral. Where we see this most often would be kind of three real applications. One, and the biggest is if clients have existing annuities, typically a retail annuity, the ability to do a Internal Revenue Code Section 1035 tax-free exchange into a private placement is often pretty attractive. Again, generally the fees, the PPVA, are going to be significantly less than in the retail structure. And the investment flexibility is going to be substantially greater than what you'd find in retail. And they're not subjecting themselves to any additional surrender charges. So they're not locking themselves up into the product for another 7 years or whatever is typically found in a retail structure. And given that the marketplace of annuities in the U.S. is about $2 trillion, there's again ample retail annuities that might find a better home for the client inside of a PPVA. A second kind of common attribution is to the extent that the client is philanthropically inclined, and they want to earmark a portion of their wealth for some charitable giving, leave it to their family foundation, or something along those lines. They can put that earmarked designation, whatever that allocation amount, into a PPVA. They get to defer all the taxes and eliminate all the tax reporting headaches, the K1s and things of that nature. And if they designate that family foundation or that other tax exempt as a beneficiary, there's no income tax bite on the back end. For those unaware, on annuity, you get all income, all investment gains are income tax deferred. But if you leave it to your child or taxable beneficiary, they'll pay tax on the gain above basis as ordinary income. But if you leave it to a family foundation, no tax due on the back end. So the benefit that provides is a lot more flexibility to the client. They don't need to make that irrevocable decision today to gift it to the foundation or what have you. But they can put it in the product. They can have the flexibility to change the beneficiary designation multiple times. They can have multiple beneficiaries if they want to leave some to the foundation and some to their children. They're able to do so. They can also access that money if circumstances change, during their lifetime. So that optionality is pretty attractive. And again, the annuity is a relatively is a little bit less expensive than the PPLI. So the benefit, the growth of that investment account is going to be faster since there's a lower fee drag. And again, I'm not sure if you guys can see how well you can see the numbers on the screen, but really over a 20 or 30 year period, the benefit of the PPVA and the tax deferral is pretty substantial. You're looking at even after 20 years, even if you leave it to your children, you're about 70% more wealth on an after-tax basis inside the annuity. And if you leave it to tax exempt, you've more than about 230% more wealth generated to leave to that particular charity. And again, the benefit of this is the longer you go out, the more powerful the tax savings are. General tax concept, which we're all familiar with. The PPLI, quick, again, this is life insurance. Often these are structured as a non-MEC structure where the client's going to fund in the premium over typically a 4 to 5 year period is what we see most commonly. We will design the contract to secure the minimum amount of death benefit based on the desired investment premium. So clients, wants to allocate, let's say, $5 million to a particular investment. We'll design it so it puts $5 million in over each year for 5 years. Based on his age, the age and gender of the insured, will determine the minimum amount of insurance necessary, and we'll secure that through the reinsurance market. And issue the policy and invest the premium per their designation. Our fees are the same for the PPVA or PPLI. So the ongoing asset-based charge of the PPLI is going to be the same, 50 to 75 basis points. There's some upfront expenses. There's a federal premium tax of 1% based on whatever amount is contributed in, and then various states charge their own premium tax, most around 2%, but luckily Alaska is significantly less. It's effectively 8 basis points for normal size policies. That's where Peak Trust has obviously been a valued partner of ours for over 20 years, and they've been so clients often will set up a trust or a single member LLC, and Peak will help facilitate the administration of that and purchase the policy to benefit from a substantially lower state premium tax on the investment premium. And then there's the ongoing cost of insurance charges, which again vary depending on the underwriting, but all in you're looking at 90 to 100 basis point drag on the investment return typically. And for that, you get to eliminate the tax drag. So again, often people look at this simply as tax arbitrage, right? With if I'm investing in a fund that's going to earn 8%, and I live in a tax, in this jurisdiction that I'm going to pay, between federal, state, and local income tax, substantial amount like New York, then I'm really earning 4% on that portfolio after tax. If I invest in that same portfolio inside the policy, then I'm earning 7% and change. And again, that 300 basis points of pickup each year, obviously compounding over a long period is again is pretty substantial, and you can sort of see some of the benefit here. So a high level, that's the PPLI, and the catalyst, same metric, same, somebody wants to put money in, $1 million a year for 5 years, we still need to secure the death benefit. But again, rather than going and getting the client to go through the medical exam and fill out a questionnaire and get APSs and all of that stuff, we just use the death benefit that they've already purchased from a Northwestern Mutual or New York Life or Pac Life, et cetera, as the death benefit in the PPLI. And then the client can execute a PPLI in much faster fashion. And again, using Alaska and Peak Trust as the situs to benefit from the lower premium taxes. Again, the catalyst is the same as the PPLI. We're just replacing the reinsurance providing death benefit with existing insurance. So pretty neat structure. Obviously, there are various income and estate tax benefits associated with all three of these structures. A lot of it does depend on the ownership, especially on the estate tax side. But there's inherent tax advantages just within a PPVA or PPLI. Operational benefits, again, the one that we do see a lot of appreciation for is the elimination of K1s and the tax headaches that they create for people. So that's one of the big ones that often goes unnoticed and is tough to quantify, but is certainly appreciated. And with that, I think, Tom, if you are on, I'm going to turn it over to you to provide some other kind of updates that have been helpful to make private placement more attractive than it has in years past.
Yeah, Sandy, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I apologize for the tech glitch on my side. Hopefully you can hear me clearly, though.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Speaking about PPLI, one of the things that was sort of an unexpected surprise towards the end of last year, as Congress was scrambling to pass the COVID relief bill, there was a lot of other stuff in that bill that didn't have anything to do with COVID. And one of the things in there was a fix under Section 7702, which is really the section of the code that one uses to determine whether or not a policy qualifies as such under the code. And essentially, it was enacted because of the rapid drop in interest rates with COVID. Folks thought that, my gosh, with interest rates so low and the already unrealistically low assumptions for whole life, perhaps people aren't going to be able to get insurance. So what they did was revise the interest rate assumptions in 7702 for the first time in 40 years. And although intended to benefit whole life, it equally benefits all policies, including private placement life insurance. And the real benefit, and it's a huge benefit, is there's a greater premium that is allowed to be contributed for each dollar of death benefit. So to put it in perspective, the sweet spot for PPLI is age 40 to 60. You're looking at 40-year-old putting in about 100% more premium, 60-year-old about 40% more premium than they were able to before this change. As you get younger, it's even more exaggerated. At age 30, one can now put in 130% greater premium. So the efficiency, the capital efficiency, and using PPLI as an asset location has been improved dramatically by these revisions under Code Section 7702. Maybe Catalyst, people use that as an asset location vehicle. Well, this helps not just Catalyst, but other PPLI. It's more efficient asset location. You can stuff more dollars into the same death benefit, basically. So that was one thing that is current and I think very relevant. I think the other thing that is sort of firming up, there's been a lot of talk about tax reform, and both Congress and Biden have zeroed in I think a a few things in terms of changes that could potentially come. Number one, on the State of the Union address made clear Biden would like to raise the ordinary rate to 39.6 from 37%. More significantly, he proposed increasing the long-term capital gain rate to that same rate, 39.6, for people earning over $1 million. He also has proposed to eliminate the step-up in basis upon death, which right now one benefits from the elimination of any unrealized gains on death. The University of Pennsylvania Wharton School suggests, and it makes a lot of sense, that increasing long-term capital gain rate alone is going to actually cause a revenue loss to the government, because people would just hold the asset, a highly appreciated asset, until death and eliminate the gains. They believe that, and I think most folks concur that we're going to see both. We're going to see a proposal to increase the long-term capital gain rate combined with the elimination of the step-up in basis, which would be huge for families that have a lot of their wealth concentrated in appreciated assets. Just to put it in perspective, simple example: somebody invested $1 million in Amazon, a few years ago, and it's $1 million, and now it's $11 million. It got a gain unrealized of $10 million. Under current law, if they sold it, the gain would be $2.3 million, which is a 20% long-term gain tax plus the net investment income tax, Medicare contribution tax at 3.8. If they held until death, they would have zero unrealized gains on the income tax side, which is what most people do with highly appreciated assets. Under the Biden proposal, if you would sell the stock, instead of a $2.38 million, it would be $4.34 million, a 43.4% tax. More significantly, if one holds until death, he's proposed not just eliminating the step up, but combining it with that elimination with a mark-to-market tax at death, similar to what Canada has in place. So right now, if one would die and have that $10 million unrealized gain, there's no tax. Under his proposals, you would see a $4.34 million tax on the unrealized gain upon death. Death is a realization event under his proposals, whether or not the asset was sold. In addition to that, you'd have the estate tax implications. And right now we have a generous, I think most people think generous $11.7 million exemption. That is proposed to be reduced, and the 40% rate is proposed to increase, as well as state tax. States like California and New York are very high. The average state tax is 6%. So when you look at the impact on those who have their wealth in a highly concentrated asset, the implications of the proposals are very, very significant. So, I think one of the key things here is to be looking now for ways to retain tax efficiency, in the face of these draconian tax proposals. And one of the things that has never been mentioned in any of these proposals is life insurance. Maybe that's because of the powerful lobby. But when one thinks about it, if one is investing in Amazon, you get the appreciation is deferred, the elimination of the gain upon death under current law. We have that under PPLI as well. You have the inside buildup is tax deferred. The death benefit is tax free, which is really the equivalent of the step up in basis. And in addition, you have investment income, dividends, tax free. Rebalancing, reallocation is tax free. Access to cash, as Sandy mentioned, during lifetime is available if it's a non-MEC. And you also have, because of the 7702 revision, the ability to put lots more assets in this location. So, from a timing perspective, it seems ideal to consider PPLI as a location for assets that would be potentially appreciating in the future. Again, Sandy, don't know the time frame we're on, but I had a couple of other things I'd like to quickly mention, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think we certainly have some time. So,
Okay. Well, you had mentioned Catalyst, and I think Catalyst is it is a terrific idea, very, very creative, and it really allows people to diversify their portfolios and otherwise tax inefficient assets. However, from an estate planning perspective, there will be two policies that are in force. The existing policy and maybe even more than one policy could be used to acquire a new PPLI policy. So from an estate planning perspective, the key is to make sure all of those policies are not in the estate of the owner. And one of the things that we suggest people look at is to use their current generous exemption, their gift tax exemption amount right now. Again, it's 11.7 for single, 23.4 for married. This is an ideal opportunity, we think, to transfer if one has an existing policy that's, perhaps in their estate, they want to transfer it to another person or perhaps to an ILET. Using that exemption to accomplish that is a good opportunity. And then also the premium payments for the Catalyst policy could be shielded as well. And, we think that accelerating the use of these exemption amounts is probably a prudent thing to do, because they're going to sunset at the end of 2025 and could go away sooner if some of these proposals that Congress and Biden have thrown out. And also in regs that came out last year, I think it was last year, the IRS indicated there's going to be no clawback, that if one actually uses their exemption now, they're not going to try to tax one later on the estate tax for having gifted under the current exemption amount. So that could be something that folks might wish to consider. Some folks have also suggested that, how do we move forward with Catalyst if we've already used our exemption amounts? And, there are ways that one could use loans from the grantor of the trust to an ILET, for instance, taking advantage of the low AFR rates. 9-year loan, for instance, is only 1.07%. That's up a lot, almost doubled since January. But still, that is a possibility to get the appreciation out of one's estate. And some have suggested that, if you restrict the collateral assignment, that the ILET may be able to buy the loan back at a discount from the grantor. So just food for thought in terms of planning for Catalyst using various forms of loans. And then I'll finish up real quick with a very, very simple strategy. It's often overlooked. It's effective. It's inexpensive, and it works well without an annuity, a PPVA. And referring to an intra-family loan structure, for instance, a father makes a loan to his son, and so long as the son invests the borrowed proceeds at a rate above the current AFR rate, there's going to be a transfer of the assets out of the father's estate. So works very well. And in the materials, you can look at an example in more detail, but if one did this under the assumptions I made in the case study, you'd have about a $63 million benefit if one was doing this without a PPVA. If one simply invested the assets in the PPVA and took advantage of the tax-deferred compounding, after all fees and expenses, taxes, and the loan to the parent is paid off, there's a $10 million benefit over a 9-year period. Use the example of a 9-year loan. That's a tremendous benefit for simply investing in a tax-efficient location as opposed to a taxable account. So in that case, it's an example of PPVA making a very attractive strategy even more attractive. So there are these different ways that PPVA can be used. That's one example. We also see it used often when a successful GRAT, for instance, terminates. People say, what do I do with the money? Well, one efficient thing to do is just roll it over into a PPVA and indefinitely defer the tax. So I'll stop there, but those are some, I think, recent developments and planning opportunities with respect to PPLI, PPVA that folks might at least wish to consider for their clients.
Great, thank you, Tom, and I think Tom is a great source of knowledge and very helpful in working with advisors and on coming up with various kind of wealth structuring solutions. So thank you very much. We're happy to have him as part of our team. I was going to touch base on a couple other sort of developments within the industry. Again, the primary driver of these structures is the investments, right? At the end of the day, if the investments aren't compelling and they don't do well, then the tax savings you're getting aren't really materializing if you're losing money, right? So, and if people are familiar with the industry, have known that it's been primarily insurance dedicated funds. So a lot of alternative managers like the Millenniums and Golubs and Golden Trees of the world have all created commingled insurance dedicated funds that have been established exclusively for private placement policies. And there's probably 120 or so, if not more, of these funds that are available to clients through private placement policies. But what has grown and I think become more attractive over the last several years is the development of doing what we refer to as a separately managed account, where if a client or their advisor is unhappy with the various investment options, they can hire their a third party, typically a registered investment advisor, and that advisor can build a portfolio and invest in assets that are not limited to the universe of insurance dedicated funds or their mutual fund equivalent, the variable insurance trust. And so just a kind of a quick background of within the investments, and within these policies, there are certain diversification tests that have to be met. That is the same test for an investment manager of an insurance dedicated fund, as well as an investment manager of a managed account. And likewise, the investment manager has to adhere to this investor control rule, which means that they have to take discretion over the portfolio and the acquisition and disposition of specific investments within either that commingled insurance dedicated fund or in the managed account. So those are the two rules that the investment manager has to meet. And then the structure of how they go about managing the assets, again, primarily used to be predominantly the insurance dedicated fund, where the manager would set up a limited partnership vehicle. They'd be able to commingle a number of different and disparate policy assets from different clients as well as different carriers, and then execute the investment strategy that way. Same terms and features as you would find in any other limited partnership structure for an alternative fund. There are a couple different ways to meet the diversification in case there's some issues around that, which I won't bore you with at this stage. And same with the SMA, it's the same concept where the client is choosing an investment manager. They're going to delegate the investment decision making and portfolio construction to that third party manager. Again, the SMA manager can invest in stocks, bonds, private funds, ETFs, drawdown funds, etc., even hard assets to the extent that they've demonstrated the capacity to do so. And we've worked with both what we call kind of allocators, right, that are choosing third-party funds or things of that nature, as well as more investment managers that are maybe executing a particular strategy using individual securities, or a blend of both. So again, there's a lot more flexibility within the SMA approach, which has also, I think, made it more attractive to clients to know that they have they may go into the policy with this particular investment in mind day one, but knowing that the time horizon for these policies is a 20, 30, 50-year period, having comfort that there's a lot of flexibility and maybe working with an SMA manager that can modify the portfolio and work with a client on developing an investment policy statement and putting some guidelines as to how the policy is invested kind of going forward, and again make modifications throughout the life of the policy to take advantage of whatever the optimal investment opportunity is at that particular time in the future. Again, there's just more slides we can share with you, and with that, I think we're kind of at the time for Q&A. So Barbara, I think I'll stop sharing my screen and then open it up to questions.
Thank you, Sandy. This is Brandon. Just want to send a reminder to all of the attendees that today's presentation is being recorded, and we will provide both the recording and the slide deck to all of those in attendance. Now we'll move on to our Q&A.
All right, Sandy or Tom, first question we have is, at what premium level investment does it make sense to acquire PPLI?
It's good. It's a question we get often, and the way that these are generally structured is very linear. All the fees and sort of the performance. Obviously, there's the time commitment that you would go into in terms of getting the underwriting and setting up the trust or the LLC. That each person has their own sort of value on their time, I guess. Our minimum is $500,000 for a non-MEC policy, a PPLI policy, where again they're going to fund premium in over typically a 4 to 5 year period. You're looking. Our minimum is $500,000 a year for 4 years. We see some of those policies, but often I think the right number is probably 4 to 6 million in terms of kind of where I think it makes sense to do so. Again, maybe it depends a little bit on the investment that you're targeting. We've certainly done a number of policies that are lower than that. I think that's really where you start to get the best value. So.
Well, thank you, Sandy. Can you tell us, does the premium tax, is that applied to each premium payment? For example, you said $500,000 over 4 years. Is the premium tax applied to each of the individual premium payments, or is it only applied one time?
It's applied just whenever that premium is paid. So in that example, it would be applicable only on those each of those 4 $500,000 payments. And then if the no premium is after that, nothing further.
All right, thank you. So next question, can the PPLI invest in the crypto market?
We've gotten a lot of questions recently on that. We haven't seen it yet or a product developed, either an insurance dedicated fund to do so. I think there's some questions on how the crypto will be custodied. So we haven't seen a product yet, although I know there are people that are looking at how to structure that, but I am not aware of anything today, unfortunately.
Yeah, just to jump in, I mean, the IRS has really been coming down the last few years with respect to the taxation of crypto. They did make clear that it's treated as property, and it sounds simple, but with respect to actually implementing and calculating the tax, it's quite complex. And I think as things shake out, I would think as Sandy mentioned the relevant things, but over time as investment managed accounts become more normal and firms are getting into that. I mean, both UBS and Morgan Stanley have made clear they're using third-party managers to deploy. I think that the the PPVA and PPLI will be, great asset locations to deploy assets like this where there's true complexity. It just eliminates the complexity.
Yep.
All right, moving right along here. Gentlemen, can you use Catalyst to convert a term policy to permanent? It's a recurring theme we have today.
Yeah, so we have done so where so what happens that with Catalyst, the clients use their existing policies. They still own them. They don't change the ownership structure or anything like that. They still, if they have to keep paying premiums to that policy, they do so. So we've done it where clients had term policy where it's provided a certain amount of death benefit. They would convert the term to lock in that death benefit, and then we could use that. Well, we've used term policies that provide the death benefit with the understanding that at a future date they will convert that term, depending on how much death benefit is needed to support the Catalyst policy at a future date. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but we can use term policies to support the issuance of a Catalyst policy. We just need to make sure that they convert the term at a future date to be able to provide the death benefit that's necessary.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandy. So next question, let's see. How does an experienced traditional insurance and retirement agent break into the PPLI or PPA markets? And what would be the expectations of referring consultants?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think certainly we spend a lot of time with insurance advisors that are looking to learn about it. So we'd be happy to teach you kind of more about the products and the details. Obviously having and there are investment firms that we work with that often they'll need a partner. These are insurance products at the end of the day, so there does need to be an insurance advisor involved in the sale of the structure. I think where we've seen insurance advisors have success is if they partner with the right kind of wealth management group that has the clients that kind of fit this profile. So you're looking, again, a client generally is going to have, they're all going to be accredited investors and qualified purchasers, generally a net worth of 20 million or more, and often to the extent that they're comfortable with and have or invest in alternative investments. That's also another positive kind of indicator that they'd be a potentially good client for private placement.
Sandy and Tom, can you tell us on the PPVA products, can they be funded with a lump sum or do they have to be funded annually? And secondly, do you accept any type of premium payment in kind?
So for the PPVA, it can be a lump sum. Certainly we can, and again, no restrictions on contribution amount or frequency or things of that with the PPVA. The PPLI, again, a lump sum single premium would be best designed as a MEC, which at least a third of our policies are MEC, so it's not an uncommon design. Otherwise, the non-MEC is usually a multi-pay structure. We as a carrier, we do not, for a U.S. compliant policy, we do not think that meets the sort of investor control doctrine and guidance provided by the service. So we only accept cash as the investment premium into both the PPVA and the PPLI and Catalyst PPLI policies.
Also, from a practical perspective, the contribution of assuming the asset is highly appreciated would trigger a capital gains tax here in the U.S. In certain countries, that's not the case. And there it makes more sense. But from a practical perspective, if you're contributing a highly appreciated asset, you're going to have a taxable event that defeats part of the purpose.
Thank you so much, guys. All right, moving on. Next question really pertains to non-U.S. or U.S. residents. Does Lombard issue PPVA for non-U.S. persons? If you could touch on both non-U.S. as well as U.S. residents, that would be great.
Sure. We do issue U.S. issued PPVAs for non-U.S. residents. We've also issued it depends sort of on the objectives. We have our principal carriers are Pennsylvania domiciled, U.S. domestic carrier. We do have two carriers in Bermuda. One's a 953D, one's a non-953D, meaning it's made an election to be treated as not as a U.S. corporation for tax purposes, where we also issue U.S. compliant annuities. For non-U.S. resident who's still a U.S. taxpayer, we could use again either the PA or 953D annuity to invest in the U.S. and defer any income tax liability that they would face. We use the non-953D primarily for non-U.S. Investors who want to invest in the U.S., but they're not U.S. income taxpayers, but they're subject to withholding tax. And that particular investment, particularly if it generates effectively connected income or FIRPTA, Foreign Investment Real Property Tax Act, then our non-953D annuity can eliminate those withholding taxes for the non-U.S. resident. So, and, in short, there's the annuity for non-U.S. residents is we have several kind of options, again, depending on what their status is and what their objectives are.
And Sandy, can you use any type of premium finance with these private placement life insurance policies?
You can. We don't have any. We don't have any prohibitions. We don't have any preferred partner on the premium financing side. I would say we don't see a lot of. We don't see many policies that use premium financing. So my clients will probably use some other, might use a credit facility or some other, credit arrangement loan facility using other assets as collateral to then to pay the premium into the PPLI. But again, we're happy to consider premium financing, and we have. It's just not. It's not typical, but certainly open.
Great, thanks, Sandy. All right, so for someone who wants to look into these ideas for their own planning, how would a person begin this process, and what are the upfront expenses?
Certainly, Tom and I would always be welcome to a conversation just to help understand the client's situation and their objectives. And obviously, if they have an insurance advisor or others, we can certainly work with or refer one to if they don't. On the annuity, there's really no upfront expense. So usually they're going to own it individually. It can be owned by a trust, most trusts, but typically it's owned individually. So there's no initial expense, just an ongoing asset-based fee. On the life insurance, then there is there's the premium taxes, the 1% federal and the roughly 8 basis points to Alaska. There's the underwriting expenses. And then there's this establishment of the trust or the LLC, and that would be really something that they'd have to talk to their legal counsel and that varies widely. We're not involved in the establishment or the creation of that trust or LLC.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let's see here. Looking through the questions. Next we have, are there any advantages for consumers in the immigration spaces for strategic capital placements for excluded assets versus non-excluded assets that they may not want host government to see?
I would defer to Tom maybe on
Yeah, wasn't quite sure of could you repeat the question?
So,
Of course. Are there any advantages for consumers in the immigration spaces for strategic capital placement for excluded assets versus non-excluded assets that they may not want the host government to see?
Well, I think it's safe to say in with all the information exchanges between the governments, at least of the developed countries in the world, that's not at least in my opinion, not a valid reason to be, or the only reason to be using insurance. I mean, when one goes into either insurance or annuities, private placement, I think the expectation should be that a tax reporting of some sort, will be, required, will be the norm. For instance, if someone in the U.S. Acquires an offshore policy, there's going to be reporting under, FBAR, and other forms will likely need to be filed as well.
Well, thank you, Tom. So we have a tremendous amount of questions today. There's absolutely no way that we'll be able to get through all of these unless we plan to close shop and spend the rest of the day here on Zoom, which I don't presume anybody wants to do. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to both Sandy and Tom for your excellent and informative presentation, and thanks to all those who attended. Again, the slide deck and the recording will be sent to all of those who attended. On the very last page of the slide deck, you will find Peak's email address as well as Sandy's email address, so you can you can certainly send any questions or comments that you have to either of us, and we'll be sure to respond in a timely manner. With that, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much.
thank you.
I'm Timur Zaman from lineofcredit.ai, and this video I'm going to share with you all the secrets you need to know about how to participate in private placement programs and capital enhancement programs successfully for 2021 and beyond. I'm going to do a frequently asked question list from all the customers that we've taken through private placement programs. I'm going to answer questions like, how is it that when you put $50 million in a capital enhancement program, it turns into $9 billion in 16 weeks? How is that possible? And I'm going to show you how that is possible. I'm going to give you the history of these private placement programs. So where did it start? Why did it start? I'm going to talk about why most of these platforms out there are fraudulent and how to detect the fraudulent ones. I'm going to share with you why is it that people feel uncomfortable putting money with an organization or a platform that they've never met, and what you can do to protect yourself. I'm going to share with you strategies that you can deploy to make sure the returns that you want to get actually gets realized. I'm going to answer how lineofcredit.ai, which is my organization, can be instrumental to you, the brokers you're working with, and the strategy that you want to deploy. My name is Timur Zaman, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Okay, so it's been a really long time. We've been helping a lot of clients participate in private placement programs or capital enhancement programs like that. And now I'm going to go into just doing frequently asked questions. But it's simply answering all the questions that are frequently asked from us, from prospective clients who want to participate in these programs. I think I'm going to be able to answer all the questions you have about private placement programs. By the end of this video, I think you're going to be like really super impressed by the world of what's possible in terms of, I don't want to say winning the lottery guarantee, but I think you're going to be in a very, hopefully a happy place for winning the lottery in a way that you can see is actually achievable. So frequently asked questions about private placement programs that I get is, and at least in this video I'm going to answer is, how do private placements work? A lot of people ask that question. Why is it that when I'm putting in, like, let's say, $50 million, it turns into $9 billion? Like, how could that even be possible? I get a lot of questions on why is the brokers that are helping clients participate in these programs, why is it they have a high failure rate? I'm going to attempt to answer that question for you here. Please keep in mind, we're not a broker. We don't broker conversations between clients and private placement programs. We get hired a lot by high net worth individuals, corporations, to do background checking and due diligence on platforms using former FBI people like that. We've got some very sophisticated tools, technologies, attorneys that we can do very deep forensic background checking on individuals and corporations. Through that is when I get to meet brokers, and I can give you a dozen that I think are authentic, that I know are authentic, real, genuine brokers. And through that is how we've met genuine platforms, the top 12 in the world. And we've, unfortunately, 90% of the platforms that clients have hired us to do due diligence have been fraudulent. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit briefly about the challenges facing brokers and why they have a high failure rate. One question I get is, why can't you get a reference from someone who's participating in a private placement program? And I think that's a great question that I get asked all the time. And that's one of the answers you're going to get here. Most people know, or at least I pray to God, most people know that most of these private placement programs or capital enhancement programs are fraudulent. The professional ones, the most sophisticated ones, know the answers before you can even think about asking a question from them. And that's one way you know they're fraudulent. Before COVID, my experience of it was 95% of people that claimed they had a platform or whatever, some version of something like that, were fake. After COVID and the economy crashing and people losing jobs, the fact is that usually in these environments, crime does go up, and digital cybersecurity, whatever criminal activities exponentially increases. And so the number of fraudulent private placement programs, I would say from 95% went up to 98%. And most participants in 2021 unconsciously are praying to God that when they're putting up their money into a private placement program, they're putting in an authentic, real program. And that's where we like to participate. We like to help people, to tell them who the real platforms are, and or help do due diligence on them. One question I guess, why haven't most people heard about private placement programs? I think that's a great question. I'm going to answer that for you. Why is it that people tell me these returns are guaranteed? I'm going to actually show you how returns are guaranteed. Many brokers tell me that my capital is not at risk. However, I feel uneasy when my money has to leave my account. Why are these programs looking for your money to be in their account? I'm going to actually show you how that works behind the scenes of it, and why that's actually important for it to happen. And I completely appreciate the nervousness of sending millions and millions of dollars to an individual, to an account, to like people you don't know, pretty much. And I'm here, although I'm not a broker, I'm here to help you feel a little bit comfortable, help you to answer some more educated questions. I think by the end of this conversation, I wouldn't say you will be an expert of the private placement programs, but you will certainly know the back end part, how it works, how it's structured, and so you know how to ask much better questions, and kind of like by the end of that, you will know whether you want to move ahead or not by the answers you get. So I like to claim you'll be an expert in private placement programs by watching this video, and that's not the truth. But I hope your experience will, certainly your knowledge will be enhanced for sure. One question I don't always get asked, but I get asked indirectly, is what do successful investors have in common? And I can't wait to share that answer with you, because there's something that the successful ones have in common. If you, as in Tamar, were going to put in your money, what would you do differently? So I have put in my own money, and I am continuing to put in my own money, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to tell you what I would do differently. How can Wtdta, which is my organization, help? And I'd love to have your permission to cover that with you at the last slide. So I have a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that I'm going to have a very sophisticated, complicated, technical conversation in a way that a 7-year-old kid would understand. So let me say this again. I have a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is that I've taken a very deep, technical, complicated question or conversation to try to enhance it for a 7-year-old kid to understand. What that means is that I'm not going to use, this thing will turn into trillions of dollars, or this will turn into $4.6 billion on day 91. I'm not going to have that, because a lot of people, the common average person, will get lost in that conversation. So if you are a technical person, if you're a detailed person, if you're somebody who needs to fact check everything I say and claim, I apologize for you ahead of time. I've tried to simplify this so the average mind can better understand what private placement program is about. Now, having said that, I'm also not going to put in 10 years of education, financial training into a video as this. It's just not going to happen. It would be helpful as a disclaimer for you to understand or know what MTNs are, medium-term notes. It would be helpful for you to understand what credit swaps are. Understanding credit swaps and MTNs will help you understand why is it that if somebody's going to put up $50 million, as an example, will get $9 billion in 16 weeks. If you've watched some of my previous videos on doing a walkthrough with my clients, where I've kind of blocked the client's picture and name for privacy reasons, and or the broker or whoever they're working with for privacy reasons. And by the way, just so you know, I think I'm pretty confident with every video I have, they're verbally, not on the video, giving me permission to videotape it, obviously. It's really important for you to understand credit swaps and understand MTNs. If you understand those two, understanding how private placement programs work will become increasingly easy for you. You'll boost your level of confidence in participating in private placement programs. So one big question I get, and consistently I get, is how is it that if I put in $50 million, I'm going to get $9 billion? People don't understand that. At some level, when they understand it, they need to go explain it to their attorney. They want to go explain it to their spouse. They want to go explain it to their friends. And that's where people get blocked or lost, or just, it's not logical. How is it logical? I put $50 and you're going to give me like $900. Like, how is that logical? And that in 16 weeks. So I want to answer that for you. And here's two places I want to come from. The first is I want to create the context and the history of private placement programs. And I think once you understand that, a lot of this would make sense. If you don't understand the history of it, it will be harder for it to make sense for you. So history of private placement programs. After World War II, there was a need to create a stable financial system to finance projects and rebuild Europe. It intends to create cash into the economy beyond central bank printing money. Most people that I know, if I ask them, name me the money system that we're in, they wouldn't know. Most people, when I ask them in seminars, private mastermind groups that I run, tell me how money gets created, most people have an illusion that the only way money gets created or printed is that the central bank presses a button and money gets printed. And most people think most people think central bank is owned by the government, which is not true. The central bank in the US is a private corporation. It's there to make a profit. So there's a lot of financial illiteracy in the world. And I just want to admit, if you don't know this, I want to be the one breaking ice for you, kind of like that, help educate you to let you know, money does not get invented, created just out of pressing a button in the central bank system. It's not. Money gets created in many, many ways. And one way is to create a financial instrument that's designed to create money that doesn't require you to necessarily print money. So when there was a time after World War II, there was a need to create money without having a central bank. And that was how the concept of private placement programs was invented, was to create an instrument to develop new credit lines that would be used for projects. Now, I want you to do some fact checking in the data, in all the data I'm giving you. My invitation for you to consider is to do fact check, page by page, line by line, whatever I present to you, to fact check, to kind of come to your own conclusion. So please look up Brent Woods. Brent Woods is a now former senator in the United States, a very former senator in the United States. He was alive in after World War II. Brent Woods was the person who created the concept of what today is called private placement programs. At the time, what he wanted to think about was how do you create an instrument, a financial instrument that, for the lack of a better word, creates money in Western Europe so that communism wouldn't grow and World War III wouldn't start. So that concept that he created on let's create an instrument that would create a credit line that would create, therefore would create cash, is what today is referred to as a private placement program. So please, for your own research, look at Brent Woods and then look at Brent Woods' agreement, and then you kind of get the source of all of that. And understand that source will be beneficial to you. You'll understand why private placement program, some investor puts up $5 million, he gets $9 million. Like, it really gives you the context for it. Today, these programs have evolved. We call them private placement programs, and they're by invitation. Every genuine broker you meet on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you find brokers that help pitch these private placement programs, they will all tell you that they're by invitation only. And I would say 5% of what brokers say, and they know to say, is the truth. And this is on the 5% side, that's by invitation only. So you get invited to these programs, and I'm going to tell you why that's even there. These programs are not designed for the average person to find about. My mother is 78 years old. My mother is on a pension. She's healthy, thank God. And I'm grateful for my mom. And I want to tell you, these programs are not designed. They're not designed for my mom. And my mom never understand how 5 million turns into 9 billion in 16 weeks. So I just want to be fully authentic and transparent with you. These programs are not designed for everybody. I want to tell you from experiencing it, having colleagues who've experienced it, they actually do work. I'm going to tell you a few of them that are genuine, actually work. And these instruments, the authentic, real ones, have been put together by the top 12 banks and family offices in the world. So going back to how does 50 million turn into $9 billion, you have to understand credit swaps and MTNs, medium-term notes. Really the foundation of how does 50 million turn into 9 billion is the foundation of how credit swaps work, and it's the credit of MTNs, exchange of medium-term notes. Where I think the most people get stuck is they have a very limited understanding of something called retail banking. In retail banking, I put $100 in my savings account, checking account, something like that, and I collect some interest, so that's at 1%. So end of the year, I put $100, I make $1 on that $100, and so I think, I put $100, I made $1. So that's what most people understand. And so when you want to take a different, I don't want to use the word industry, but kind of like in a way a different industry called credit swaps, and try to compare it to retail banking, you'll get lost. You really get lost. It would be like a credit card. If I'm late in making payments on my credit card, it's like an 18% interest fee. It's not 1% that a bank pays in retail banking. So very different. The prices are significantly different. What you're exchanging is significantly different. I understand that it's really important to you. It's important. So going back to how does 50 million turn into $9 billion, consider the world operates on credit. The more credit you have, the more you can lend. The less credit you have, the less you can do. Here's some facts that I just want to throw out there. 50 years ago, the United States government had, just for the lack of a better word, billions of dollars in deficits that they owed. This is 50 years ago. 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, it was in trillions of dollars. Today, as of this moment of shooting this video, the United States deficit is in trillions and trillions and trillions, and I think every hour they manufacture, if there's a better way of saying it, I apologize, I'm not saying it, it's like billions of dollars every hour in terms of deficits. The United States government alone, not you add the Indian government, the Pakistani government, whatever other governments, becomes more. So I just want to get you to see the credit facility is a lot higher today than it was 50 years ago, 10 years ago. And whatever the United States deficit is today, 10 years from now, it's going to be 5 million times more, and 20 years from now, it's going to be 5 billion times more. And all I want to make the point on is the world runs on credit, period. There's enough evidence to just know that the world runs on credit. So consider when a bank issues a credit, it's a function of how much assets they control. The more assets the bank controls, or financial institution controls, a trading desk of a private placement controls, the more credit they can issue. The fewer assets you have, the less you can issue. And I think most people can understand that. The amount of credit facility offered to economy is monitored by Basel Accord. So I can tell you private placement programs work. I can tell you there's lots of hundreds of them, or whatever. I can tell you most of them are fraudulent, but the ones that work really work and produce a lot of cash. But these are not programs that are being run at your local convenience store. These are very selective programs. There's a start and a stop date. They generally speaking run in 40 weeks increments. A few of them run all year round. A few of the authentic real ones run all year round. But I just want to tell you there's a Basel Accord, there's a United States Treasury Department, and there are people that control the supply of money in the world. So I don't want you to think that this is let's print money all day long and make everybody in the world filthy rich. It's just not designed to do that. When a trader puts together $100 million, now this is the part that really dimmed it down. Really tried to simplify for the average common man or woman to understand this. When a trader puts together $100 million, it triggers a line of credit for them for $400 million. That $400 million in a medium-term note, and an MTN pays, I'm just using the example of coupon rate or interest rate of 7%, and they sell the note at a higher price to make a profit. Now, I don't know any authentic, genuine trading desk that gets $100 million. I think 100 million, I don't think I know 100 million is the ticket to get into the genuine real ones. The numbers are a lot bigger, but I just want to tell you, a trade desk puts together some cash. That cash triggers a credit line. That credit line is what goes into what's referred to as a private placement program, or as a vehicle that goes and purchases MTNs as a discounted price at a certain price, and it sells the MTN at a higher price and makes a profit. And where it makes a lot of money, it turns $50 million into, if you watch some of my previous videos, you will see a couple of videos I've done with clients that put up 50 million, they've got 9 billion. How it does that is that's the secret sauce. It buys MTNs at a certain price, it sells it at a high price. And what's brilliant about it, what's gorgeous about it, is that the whole thing doesn't get triggered until the profit on paper has already been made. And I'm going to explain how arbitrage works in a second. The key here is that you purchase the MTN, and the MTN is being leveraged 10 times over and over again. MTNs are very different vehicle than other trading instruments, and there's a lot of YouTube sessions. We've done some YouTube sessions on this topic as well. We're going to do a lot more YouTube sessions on topics similar to this. Please sign up to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I understand what trading sugar is because we get lots of clients who are in the commodity industry, and they call us with standby letters of credit, and they want us to monetize their standby letters of credit. So I understand what trading coffee is. This is not coffee. Like the average person goes, so you buying a credit line for this price and you're selling at this price. Partly that's true, but the whole sale doesn't happen unless the profit is realized the arbitrage done on paper first. And it's MTN, and people don't understand the value, the power of MTNs, and then compare it to trading coffee, sugar, rice, or something else. And that's where there's a disconnect in financial literacy. And so that's why I think understanding MTNs and the value of MTNs could be instrumental to you understanding how private placements work. And once you understand how private placements work and you feel very comfortable about it, you know what questions to ask. And that's when I think the world is your oyster as far as money is concerned. It's like literally winning the lottery without playing the lottery. You're playing the private placement program game instead. Trade desks are generally expected to be over 20% per month. I want to tell you that's true. Every one of them that I've seen is over 20% a month. And the expectation is based on a track record over the last decade. Please keep in mind that returns are contractually agreed upon by the trade program and the trader before the trading begins, and so and can vary on a case-by-case basis. This is when one of our investors puts out $50 million in a capital enhancement program, like a line of credit facility, gets $9 million in profit sharing in 16 weeks. Organizations or trade desks buy medium-term notes. They agree imagine I want to sell a house and I'm in a desperate situation. I really have to sell my house and I'm going to sell it at a really low price because I need it out. And then there's somebody else who needs to buy a house and they have a lot of money and they happen to love or specifically looking for the area that, maybe they have a child that goes to a school near my house kind of thing. So they're willing to pay a premium for my house. So that's what the trade desk does. That's what, not the program director, but the, for lack of a better word, again, it's not the right word. I'm just going to simplify the investment strategy person. There's a technical word for this, but the person who's designing the trade knows it has an agreement on paper that they're going to buy an MTN note at a very reduced price. They know how to leverage it, lend it out 10 times, make money on it, but also sell to an institutional investor at a much higher price. And they are doing this over and over and over again. Sometimes they're doing it multiple times a week on the same note. And that's why they can offer 20% per month. As your returns only, they're making the same returns on their end. And it's a very lucrative place to be. What you must understand is illegal for a banker or trader to use the bank's assets to get a line of credit. This is where the investors, capital, contributors, capital comes into play. And I think that's the part that most people don't understand. It's like if the trade desk is doing millions and millions of dollars, that's true. And they can demonstrate that they've done millions and millions of dollars, which is also true. Therefore, why do they need my money? And the answer is that it is illegal for a bank, for a trade desk within a bank, to use their own assets, their own money to put that in a trade. That's the part that's just simply flat illegal. And again, I'd like you to fact check it, and I don't want to sit down and give you a 10-page slide on proving why that's illegal and what the bank laws and what the bank's laws are not. I'd rather just get you to agree with me that a trade desk by law cannot use the bank's assets or their own assets to go get a credit line, to trigger a credit line. Why would somebody want to trigger a credit line? The world runs on credit. If I want to buy a house, as an example, let's say my house is worth $10 million, I just have to put 20% down, so $2 million, and 80% the bank gives me a credit or a loan for 80%. And with 80%, I can do a lot more than I can do with 20%. And remember the history on where this came from. The intention was to create a system that creates money. So banks cannot, a trader cannot use their own cash. They have to, by law, use somebody else's cash. Excuse me. That's where the investor's money comes in. So the investor puts out $50 million. The trader gets a line of credit that's much higher on that, and then they execute that line of credit. What's amazing is that the only time they can press the play button is for the transaction when they have, by law, locked the transaction. Said differently, the beauty of this is when the profits are not based on hedges, but rather on pricing of the contract. So if I was a trader, I've negotiated to buy a MTN at, let's say an MTN is worth $100 million as an analogy, for $80 million. And I've agreed somebody to buy it for me the same day, same time at $90 million. So there's a profit of $10 million. So now, once I sign a contract that somebody's going to buy for me for $90 million and sign a contract, that somebody's going to sell to me at $80 million. Now I've quote unquote, the technical term for it is I've locked it in. Locked in means that I've got a contract signed. Now all I have to do is make sure I have investors putting in the amount of capital that I need to trigger a credit line that's, let's say, for simplicity, just making life simple for people who cannot necessarily think exponentially. Simplicity, when you want to buy a house, you have to put 20% down. The bank gives you a line of credit for or loan for the other 80%. Same concept. It's kind of like I've locked in the contract. Now I need the program director to go and get me, a couple of $100 million, maybe $1 billion. Once that $1 billion is locked in, it triggers let's say, simplifying a $5 billion credit line, and the $5 billion credit line is what goes into trade, into private placement, but it is what is being used for me to buy the instrument, the MTN at $8 million, and I've already sold it on paper, on arbitrage, the same day, same time for $10 million, producing $2 million, $20 million in profit. So this is what private placements do, is they do arbitrage. So write this down. If you haven't read about arbitrage beyond credit swaps and MTNs, you should understand what arbitrage is. And please research it so you'll better appreciate what private placements provide to you, to your lifestyle, to your income, to your business, to your future. What makes it secure a transaction is that the trader has locked the transaction. Locked the transaction means they have secured the seller of the note and the buyer of the note. Once they have both parties locked in, they need to execute the contract. Trading does not occur in the US. It doesn't occur in the US, Canada, because of the Basel Committee and Basel laws that North American banks have signed off on. That's one question I get. Why is HSBC allowed into these trading platforms? I don't know if that's a true question to ask. I think the question people need to ask is not why HSBC is involved or why Barclays is involved in these trading platforms. I think a better question is why a lot of these trades are being done in Singapore, in Asia, and Europe. And the answer for that, again, please fact check everything I say to you. The biggest banks in the world are not Barclays or HSBCs of the world. The biggest banks in the world are the Chinese banks, as an example. There was lots of banks that never signed up for this, for Basel Accord. They just never signed up for Basel Accord. So they're allowed to do and work on, measure, monitor these private placement programs. And that's why these programs, generally speaking, happen in Asia and Europe. And they're all by the top AAA banks like the JP Morgan's, Chase, Credit Suisse, Citigroup, HSBC, and others. In a moment, I'm going to tell you why you should care about that and why I think you should have it. Another question I get is, can you tell me what's common between clients who have successfully realized the benefits of private placement programs versus clients that haven't? So why are a lot of clients not successful at getting to these programs, and a few are? Remember, it's by invitation, and you need to have proof of funds before you walk into these programs. I don't know if you know about this. If you don't, you will experience it. But pretty much before you get invited to the party, you need to have an ID that says you're a very rich person, or you have a very rich company, or whatever it is, but it's called proof of funds. Here's how I'm going to answer it. I wrote a book called Hypergrowth, How to Connect to Customers Anyways. And the one thing I discovered out of interviewing a lot of exponential thinking CEOs was the feeling of I deserve it and I can, like the confidence of I can. If you are, and please don't hear this wrong way, this is not a racist, sexist comment that I'm making. If you're a taxi cab driver, as an example, and there's nothing wrong with a taxi, I'll take back the taxi cab thing. If you're a janitor or something like that, because I remember when I was a kid going to high school, trying to make ends meet, I used to do janiting part-time, like full disclosure. So I'm going to use my own, my previous profession when I was a kid. You want to, you have a, regardless of what your functional role in life is, if you have this belief of I don't deserve it, I can't afford it, and I cannot do it, or something like that, if that's going on in your subconscious mind, the probability of participating and or experiencing the benefits of financial freedom or whatever these private placement programs are is nil. And I'm going to tell you straight off the bat, if you have a business that is really a job for you, but it's not a business, it's not a, I can be a plumber and that's fine. As long as I'm happy being a plumber, that's fine. But being a plumber is just really me having a job versus running a company like Facebook. It's like that could be an exponential technology company. It's a big difference between a plumber and running a company like Facebook. That mental skill, that mental way of operating, I deserve a big company, I deserve exponential thinking, I deserve, and I can. Those are the people that participate in private placement programs from my personal experience in it, and they successfully go through it, and they successfully make a lot of cash out of it. The people that have unconsciously or consciously have a story in the back of their head that I don't deserve this, and I can't, and they don't have the confidence, will waste a lot of brokers out there, their brokers' time out there for sure. They may not, I don't think a lot of them will even get into a program. They will be inspired by the numbers for sure. They don't participate in these programs. They waste a lot of time. And even when they do, I don't know what happens. They somehow screw it up somewhere. That's been my experience. So if I was going to tell you what's common between the clients who successfully do it, is they have the mental attitude that I can and I deserve it, versus people who don't, they can't and they can't deserve it kind of thing going on. And that's just a personal comment to that. One question I guess, many brokers tell me that my capital is not at risk. However, I feel really uneasy when my money has to go to leave my account. Why does the program need the capital in their account, and is there anything you can do to protect it? So the first thing I want to tell you is that part of our company, Wtdta, we charge a lot of money on consulting to do something called due diligence. We retain, please check out our website, Wtdta, who we are. We retain former FBI people. Look at our YouTube channel. We have relationships with former FBI, former CIA, and we have, anyway, I don't want to go into that. I just want to tell you we have very sophisticated technical law enforcement resources on our team that I can very quickly monitor, check if somebody is truly a private placement company or not, if the broker is real, if the paymaster is real, like that. And so can you do anything to protect yourself? The answer is yes, you can hire a lot of Wtdta and or any of our competitors who can do that kind of deep level forensic work. I haven't seen anybody in the marketplace. I see forensic accountants, some detectives, but really not people who are sophisticated as us. But feel free to please always talk to our competitors like that, so you can compare for yourself. So that's what you can do to protect yourself. Now going back to the question of why do they need your capital, is that the investor's capital is not put at risk in trading. The investor's capital is used to just get a line of credit triggered. It's created line credit. The bank fully underwrites the credit line before it can get started, therefore guaranteeing the investor's money will never be collateralized. The investor's capital is not physically involved, and in fact it's prohibited to use, with the buy and resell of activities when generating profit. So imagine you're putting your money, and I'm putting my money, end of the day, I'm using the wrong word, and I'm straight off the bat using the wrong word, but it simplifies it. It's syndicating. The platform is taking $100 million from you and $100 million from some other guy, putting together $1 billion. That $1 billion triggers a credit line. The $1 billion is underwritten by the bank. So if somebody says my money is at risk, they don't understand how private placement programs work. It's a credit line that goes to buy the note. It's a credit line that can't even go into play until the whole deal is, the arbitrage is done. So the fiduciary trade capital always sits in their bank account without liability of lien, encumbrance, transfer control, or subject to the first call by anyone, and only serves as a security pledge on the contract to a trader. Really, that's it. So this is why your money cannot be in your bank account unless you've got $100 million, in which $100 million is enough for it to get blocked. And that $100 million could be leveraged. And even that $100 million has to be one of the top 25 banks in the world, like a HSBC or Barclays or something like that. It can't be the no-name bank of India as an example. So if you are a small cap player, you don't have $100 million, so you have $50 million, it does have to leave your account. Actually, I need to stand to be corrected. $50 million, you can participate in something called capital enhancement program that can get blocked into your account and can give you $9 billion. But not everybody knows what a capital enhancement program is, although I have other videos on the difference between private placement and capital enhancement program. But going to private placement programs, the money has, if you're a small cap player, like you're participating in less than $100 million, your money has to move from your account into the trader's account, because a trader needs to show the money as if, I'm saying it this wrong way, as if it's their money, although it's not their money, it's your money, and you have all the legal paperwork to say you're putting so much money in the trade desk's account. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel right now. I like to make a point in my videos to just say, hey, please don't forget to subscribe to it. Every time we publish one of these educational videos, you'll be notified right away, and I want to make sure you have some advantage to that quickly. So please take a moment and subscribe. Press the subscribe button below. Many brokers tell me that my capital is not at risk. So why is it that they want my money out of the bank account? So the trader's using this pledge to trigger his or her credit facility on the contract with his or her bank, which then extends a line of credit against his or her capital, which comes from the investor. The bank protects the investor's account from a call. The credit facility is used to purchase of securities, is subject to a bank's responsible confirmation of a closed book sale only. The trader must have confirmed contracts with exit buyers, that's called the closed book, for securities before the bank releases the credit line. This is the part that makes it really gorgeous, makes it really sweet, makes it really profitable. This is the part where I think most people fail to understand. They get nervous about money moving or however these things work. That they don't understand the mechanics of it. And now you can understand the mechanics of it based on what I'm sharing with you. The sale itself is managed and scrutinized by the bank at all times, and their funds and license are exposed. So these trading platforms, there's a lot of sophisticated eyes that are looking and watching these platforms happening, and there's lots and lots and lots of checks and balances on this. A trading platform guy can take trillions of dollars or billions of dollars and disappear. This is a very heavily watched eye kind of a program. In other words, the investor's funds are not directly involved in the buy-resell of the transaction. The investor's cash deposit as a security commitment is a non-callable and not subject to loss liability because the terms and conditions of the credit line facility in which a transaction resell funds are in place before the release of the credit line. So the profits are, so imagine I've already got the contract signed on both ends. What's going into the contract is not your money, it's the credit line. So even that credit line goes into effect when I've got the contract signed. The profits already made on paper, the arbitrage are already done. And now I just need my program directed to come up with trillions of dollars or billions of dollars or whatever amount I need. And in the wrong word I'm using, and I apologize, disindication. Since cash deposits and banking instruments must be with top 25 banks, there's a nominal financial institution risk. But this is if there should be a bank bailout. However, these programs are only occur in the top 25 banks with a AAA credit rating. Now, if that doesn't give you security, a sense of security, I don't know what will. And you might as well put your money with mutual funds and do retail banking all along, and that's perfectly cool too. So now I have a question for you. You're watching this video, and I would like to ask my audience a question, and if you could have your answer below this video, or drop me a line at lineofcredit.ai from our website. If you drop me a line, I'll appreciate it. And this is my question to you. Given the experience you've seen us have so far, the experience that you have in private placement programs, would you have any objections? The key is, would you have any objections in hiring our firm to help you in a private placement program? So that's just simply a question. Given the experience that we've demonstrated so far, would you have any objections? And I ask you to do what your questions are. I'm just simply asking, would you have any objections in hiring us? That's the question I want to ask you, based by the experience or expertise we've demonstrated so far. So the fourth question I get is, many traders tell me that returns are guaranteed. How is that possible, and is there anything you can do to protect it? So private placement programs, the returns are best efforts. And I want to be very careful on how I say that. Authentic private placement programs, the returns are on best efforts. Capital enhancement programs, which is a different beast by itself, the returns are guaranteed. But private placement programs, the returns are on best efforts. The profits are not speculative, but contractual. The platform is purchasing a note using a credit line at a specific price, selling the note to another buyer, like an institutional buyer, at a higher price. The trade can happen when only profits have been secured. And they always tell you, the genuine ones will always tell you that the returns are on best efforts. So how can you guarantee your returns? That's pretty much a question you're thinking about for yourself. So the one is participate at $100 million. Once you're at $100 million, you are seen as an institutional buyer and you take it very seriously. And so that's just one thing I would do. If you are really stuck in and you want your returns to be guaranteed, then put up some real cash. Don't put up $5 million asking the question, can my returns be guaranteed? It's not fair. So that's the first thing I want you to do. Second one that you could do if you want to participate or you want to see returns guaranteed is participate in a capital enhancement program. If you don't know where to find a capital enhancement program, contact us. And remember, we're not brokers, but I'll put you in touch with a broker that we know and we trust. The third one that you could do is diversify your investment in various programs. So if you have, let's say, $25 million you want to put in a private placement program, you can find somebody else who wants to put $5 million or $50 million or whatever it is. That's called syndicating. You're syndicating with others. Diversify means that if you've got, let's say, $50 million in a private placement program, put $5 million with one joker broker, put another $10 million with another joker broker. I apologize, I shouldn't call people joker brokers, but unfortunately, a lot of these brokers are fraudulent artists themselves. At least that's the experience that I get when my firm gets retained to check these people out. For brokers, maybe you can go to 5 different ones and put money with different ones, and if 2 of them fail or 3 of them fail, the other one will hopefully do better. So if you're looking for a guarantee for your returns, why don't you consider that, diversify? If you don't know 10 of these brokers, contact me. I can put you in touch with 2 or 3 or 4 that are genuinely honest people that my firm has a working relationship with. We can testify to their character. We can have former FBI people testify to their character. And we know that the placement platforms that these people are marketing today actually work. And then the other one is syndicating it. So let's say if you have 25 million, you have 100 million, can you find 5 other friends to put up the difference? If you can't, call me, Wtdta, our core business, believe it or not, is to provide line of credit so we can provide you with a known line of credit for you to participate at $100 million so you can get the guarantees that you're looking for. Next question, I guess, why do banks want to create their instruments with my cash? And is there any programs you have experience with that I can bring my instruments into? So a lot of private placement programs do want cash from you, and unfortunately, nobody's looking for a $500 gift card from Starbucks. So you can't bring your own instrument. You can't bring in your card. They want cash, and in many cases, that cash has to leave your bank account. It has to go into their bank account. So why do they want money, and why do they want it in their instrument instead of you bringing your own instrument? So the bank issues a MTN because they can leverage the MTN 10-to-1 and loan it out at an interest rate for 10 years, and they make a lot of profit. A lot of profits. If you can study MTNs, is that thing just produces cash. And yes, so that's why they want your money. You can't go in with your own instrument. Hey, I have an instrument. Use my standby of credit where the money is in my bank account block and just use my instrument. It doesn't work that way. They need your cash because they're trying to create their own instrument So they need your cash to create that instrument so that they can get that credit line. And yes, I do have access to 2 programs that we have vetted that I can tell you are genuine and authentic and pay out and all that other cool stuff. At least the day that we checked them out, they were still available in the marketplace. You can take your own instrument, you can take your own standby letter of credit and or MTN note. So for sure there are programs out there. If you're participating via MTN or SPLC, you must provide whomever you would like to work with your ISIN number. That's your, so when I purchase a standby letter of credit, how you would know it's a genuine standby letter of credit is that I have to have an ISIN number or your QSEP number if you have an MTN. So those are 2 things you need to provide as a proof that the instrument you bring into the party is truly real. So there are 2 that I know of that you can bring your own instrument to the platform, but generally speaking, 99% of the authentic, genuine, real ones want you to bring cash. And please bring a lot of it with you. Services that we can offer is we can fund you. So if you need a top up, we can provide that. We can provide due diligence via former FBI, CIA agents. We can do diversification because we get hired by a lot of clients to do due diligence on a lot of these platforms. We know which ones work, which ones don't work. So you may have access to 1 broker or 1 trading platform like that. It might be to your benefit to know about 3. We don't want to compete with your broker at any point. We get a lot of business through a broker community, so I have zero intention of competing with them. So what we do is we tell the broker that you'd like to diversify. You tell your broker you want to diversify, and then we introduce that broker to those trading platforms, and they split the commission with the other broker. But end of the day, you get to diversify, and I think that's pretty awesome. Then we can offer legal oversight. We have attorneys who are real attorneys. The attorneys we know what a capital enhancement program is. I have found in my experience, if the lawyer doesn't know what a capital enhancement program is, instead of them enabling you, they will disable you because the guy just simply doesn't get it. And imagine putting them in front of the private placement program where this game, you're not picking them, they're picking you. I said that that's the beginning of the slide. This is by invitation only. So you want to have a really good attorney who understands that it's a privilege for you to participate in. However, they also know what to look for to protect you. So we have some legal resources that we can put you in touch with, but we've seen a few of these contracts over our lifetime, so we can help you out with some basic stuff for sure ourselves. Question 6 is, why hasn't everyone heard about these programs? That's a really great question. By the way, I had a YouTube video, one client of ours asked that question from a private placement guy. Why haven't a lot of people heard about that? And the answer is that these are international fiduciary trades made by invitation only. That's very true. They're on the strict non-solicitation rules. It's customary to have facilitating intermediaries involved in the introduction. Remember, this is not designed for my neighbor, it's not designed for my 87-year-old mother to understand as an example, or 70-year-old mother to understand. If she heard that I got her wrong age. So anyways, it's not designed for everybody to know. That's why not everybody knows. That's the answer. The intermediaries get compensated 1 to 2% on the trade. The paymaster pays them out. You're not paying them out. The paymaster is paying them out. And so the intermediaries are looking for people that have 5 million, 50 million, 100 million to participate in. They're not looking to do a Facebook advertising or something like this. How does the application process work? That's pretty simple. You have to, if you're going to call my firm, we're not a broker, so I'll have to put you in front of a broker. But generally speaking, you have to prove to me who you are. If your name is Taimur Zaman, there must be 2, not 1, but 2 legal documentation, government documentation that says what your first and last name is. Everybody will need that. It's called KYC or CIS form. Everybody needs some kind of proof of who you are. Right? Everybody on the planet will know show me proof of funds. If you have $50 million, show me proof of funds. By the way, I want to tell you, it is illegal to provide false proof of funds. It is considered a privilege to be invited to participate in a fiduciary trade. It's not a right. I have seen a lot of people being kind of like never being called on because they had an attitude about it. They was like, oh, so you need my 50 million for this to happen to you. Well, wasn't it for me? And last second, people become really greedy and they've changed the rule, changed the process, or changed something. The trade desk doesn't call back, and that's the end of you. The training administrators and managers have virtually endless supply of financially qualified applicants. And I want to tell you that part is extremely true. You'd be surprised how many billionaires there are in the world. Like, you'd be very surprised. And they're not looking for you. The program manager and their banks will favor the applicant who provides the best paperwork. That's true. Follows through promptly with all asks, yes, and does not attempt to modify or dictate variations to the standard procedure. Why that's important is, remember, I can't remember what was the word I used, but the guy who actually puts the deal together has locked it in. He knows what the buy and sell price of that MTN is and how much money he's going to make and how often the trade is going to happen. And the minute client wants to own the process or have some kind of oversight, this is the part where you become a waste of time to any broker you're working with. And I promise you, these brokers work very hard to put you in front of these privilege to be there. So please don't. Just cut that out. If you want to control things and monitor things and dictate things, please don't go into this area. I ask of you, please don't do that. Please do that in your own business and tell people how you want them to run their lives. This is not a program that does that, and I'm saying that with all due respect. I've seen this backfire on the broker when they put clients in and the client becomes greedy last second and they say funny, stupid things, and it just doesn't work. An applicant should never underestimate what the trading entities know about them. Failure to provide full disclosure upfront will disqualify the disingenuous. That's correct. Applicants must first prove that they are qualified, not the other way around. Until the applicant has passed the AML compliance required by the trading banks, no placement can occur or any offer be made. So how does the application process work? Is that program managers now legally, they're not allowed to discuss the yield, schedule, no contract terms after the potential investor has passed the compliance, and or else they can lose their license. If you own a corporation, or if you want to participate through a corporation for tax reasons, or for whatever other reason on the planet, you do need to have your officers and directors exclusive signatory. I would highly recommend having your meeting minutes done up to date, your compliance of your corporation done up, because there's a lot of background checking being done on the corporation. So the funds have to be in U.S. banks with corresponding branches in Europe, Hong Kong, companies like JP Morgan, Chase, Citibank, HSBC, and so on. It is felony fraud to submit documents or financial instruments that are forged, altered, or counterfeit. Such forms, including attempt to submit assets that are not under direct control, are promptly referred to the appropriate law enforcement agencies for immediate criminal prosecutions. I want to not tell you how many times we've seen the FBI White Collar Crime Division being contacted because people do funny things. Don't do funny things. This is something you have to go and be genuine and just make sure your paperwork is legit. I have a question for you guys. And again, this is a question I have for my viewers because we get lots of views on our YouTube channels on the content that we provide. And the question that I ask is, given the experience you've seen us produce so far, a demonstration of some of our experience so far, would you have any objections in hiring our firm to help you with private placement? Just a question. Do you have any objections in hiring us to assist you in your private placement programs, your desire to do so, given the content and experience that we've demonstrated we have? This is a question for you. You don't need to answer it if you don't want to. It's just a question. Why do most potential investors not participate? That's a really good question. Why are potential investors not participating? One is, I would say, the biggest ones, they don't understand credit swap markets. They are comparing this to retail banking. It doesn't match up. And I go to my bank, I put $100 in, I get $1 interest at the end of the day. End of the year, I get $101 as my total thing. What do you mean I put $100 in some kind of instrument? Oh, that I'm putting in somebody else's bank account, and then it gives me $100 amount. This must be fraud. This can't be true. This is illegitimate, something like that. But really, it's a lack of knowledge, and then they're comparing it to something that they shouldn't be comparing it to. It's like me comparing my current wife to my ex-wife. It's not a good idea. It doesn't work. I'm gonna tell you, don't compare Creswa to retail banking. That's all I'm gonna say. Once you start doing the comparison of what you know, that's why I think people, it doesn't make sense for them. And really what's there is just simply a lack of knowledge, lack of this kind of rich content. And that's where they get stopped. So that's why I think most investors don't participate. The ones that I see, they don't participate. There's something called informal rules. In a public domain conversation, I don't want to talk about the informal rules, but if you have certain religious names, or you come from certain backgrounds, or you come from like drug lord countries, you really have to understand the program director has a lot of applicants waiting for that phone call. They're not waiting for you. The minute you smell funny, or you just come from a funny background or location or something like that, you simply don't get invited to participate. There's nothing there for you to do. And these rules are not published. It's come out of people, brokers tell me how many times they've taken one client to 4 different platforms, and that client, everything checks out, but why isn't this guy getting in? I want to tell you, if it was that easy, everybody else on the planet would do it. And I just want to say in a public domain like this, there are informal rules, and I'm not going to be publishing those informal rules. I'm just going to say that's one reason why a lot of people don't get the chance to participate. The other part of it is that this industry is unfortunately full of scam artists, and everybody knows about it. Before COVID, my experience was 95% of the brokers out there were fraudulent. The paymaster on the trade was fraudulent. The trade desk was new, so the first week they paid, second week they paid, third week, every time you make a phone call, nobody's picking the phone call. I can go on and on and on and on. And it's unfortunate that a lot of these, if you don't know which one are the genuine ones, the ones that you might be praying that you will win the lottery when you want to participate in this. And fact is that there's a lot of scam artists out there. The other reason why a lot of people don't participate, potential investors don't participate, is they get to see what the returns are at $100 million level. And then they go, well, I don't have 100 million, I got 5 million. They get stopped there. Instead of, remember the slide before when I said I deserve it, I can, what successful ones do? They kind of get stopped and they walk away. They're not clear on how they could, they're not clear they can call my company and get $100 million as an example. Or they don't know how they can do syndications, and they just simply walk away. And this is why a lot of potential investors that I've seen don't participate. Why can't I get a reference check from a trading desk? That's true. A lot of people ask me, can you give me references? And when it comes to this particular part of our business, the answer is no, and never, and it's not going to happen. When you even go to a trading desk, generally speaking, they don't provide you with references. So trading desk will show you past performance, but no reference. The brokers that show you references, I would highly question their integrity or even their eligibility and or their real. But why nobody can show references? Because this marketplace is highly regulated and strictly confidential. The investor's absolute confidentiality is a critical element of every contract with strict non-disclosure agreement that is enforced. The client who breaks the confidentiality will precipitate instant cancellation and may be required to repay profits received. So if I was in a private placement program, I can't talk about it, or a capital enhancement program, I can't talk about it by law. And if you ever find out that I was participating in something like that, especially which one, I will lose all the returns I'm getting. And that's why that's why you don't get references on this. This is not a business where you get references easy. I can tell you that for sure. How can line of credit help me out? We provide education. We can do custom training education for you, your CFO. If you have a CFO, your chief legal officer, there's usually a difficult spouse somewhere there that you really have to convince. And I'm happy to say we're the world's awful salespeople, so we don't do convincing, we do education only. you convince yourself end of it, or you're not. Another way, we do custom training education, and we charge money for it. I came to a conclusion because I found that the market needed a lot of education in this space. And I found that the market figured out that there are a lot of brokers out there that have misinformation and conflicting information, and it just didn't add up for them. I was looking at from my own personally, I want to participate, and have participated in private placement programs or have started participating in private placement programs. And there's a feeling of security you want to have. We figured out how to do that security, and I don't provide that IP in a public domain. I charge a lot of money for doing that. So I figured that the market was keep calling us and taking a lot of my time, taking a lot of my team's time. And so we said, after 2 phone calls, I'm going to make this available. And how I'm going to make it available is I'm going to charge you for consulting hours. Simply, if you want me to educate you beyond what I will provide for free on a YouTube channel, I'm gonna charge for my time and expertise to do that. So that's the first thing we do in serving our clients, is we provide custom education and training. If you've never done a private placement program, I highly recommend going to a 1-day education session. You'll get a lot of value out of it. And please bring your difficult to convince spouse or business partner or lawyer or accountant, whatever, and we're happy to be of service. The second thing we do, which is our core business, is to provide line of credit. So if you need a top off or you need a line of credit or a loan to participate in a private placement program, we do that. If you go to lineofcredit.ai, click on Rent a Rich Uncle program. Rent a Rich Uncle program will be a perfect program for you to get money to participate in a private placement program. The third thing that we do, and I know for a fact we are one of the top agencies in doing this, is doing due diligence on private placement programs, just because of so many of them we do every day. Just on and on, the number of fraudulent, fraud doesn't stop. It works 24/7. And the minute you catch that fraudster, he goes and sets up the same fraud in a different place. And we do very good background checking. I'm happy to say the director, we've got a phenomenal team of former FBI, CIA people we work with. We have some very sophisticated instruments and technology that we use in helping clients out. Our attorneys are the best of the best. And we've done this so many times of asking 9 questions from the trade desk that we can tell you literally within a 1 phone call whether you're talking to a genuine trade desk or not. And then we can provide you with a diversification strategy. So if you find a trade desk or trading platform, private placement program, something like that, and you want to put $50 million in, that's awesome. If you can't, but if you want to diversify and you want to look for 2 or 3 other programs, as long as you provide me a CIS and proof of funds and sign whatever contracts we give you to sign, you're committed to a diversification program, then we can help you that too. That's it in a nutshell. I think I don't want to say you're an expert in private placement programs, but I'd like to think you are certainly far more knowledgeable than you are before this long video. I would say thank you so much for being so generous with your time, your attention. I hope you got some value out of this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If I can be of any service to you, if my team can be of service to you, if we can answer some basic questions you have, please feel free to go to lineofcredit.ai. Check us out, and we're happy to answer the questions. If you want to participate in a private placement program, please click on Services Others Cannot Offer. Go to Monetizing Stamp Letters of Credit and Private Placement Programs. Fill up all the applications you need to fill up. Send us those documents, and then book a call with us. And once we have your documents, then we can tell you where the gaps are, and we have service you that way. My name is Tamer Zaman, and I look forward to the opportunity of working with you shortly.
House, he got things going on, his time free, he can go do whatever he want to. Without me even forcing them, they're gonna ask the question. And I'd have been around people with the money, and because of the environment, it's free of all the stress. It ain't that stressful with the kids anymore. So think about somebody going to work, they might be making good money, but they probably at work 10 to 12 hours a day, or they probably at a job that's frustrating them every day. Now you trying to come home and force your kids to be what you want them to be. I don't force my kids to be me. It might not be a trade guru, but I do so many different things. You're going to pick up on something family related, business wise. I ain't got to force it on you no more. And that came from me investing in myself and freeing my time up and getting out of the traditional 30 years working, I supposed to retire. Let's be honest, nobody's gonna work 30 years on a job no more. That's gonna be a rare breed.
Right.
With the technology and how the world changing, you can't use the traditional way. That means if you still using them same traditional ways, you didn't maneuver. Times changing. You gotta maneuver. Guess what? Virus hit, what we did. We maneuvered. Why you think these stocks hit? Think about how many people ain't even went and looked at the stock market. They're looking at what the government been telling them the whole time.
Well,
They were, man, I hear more people that ain't trying to do nothing talking about, my, like last night, I talked to somebody, oh yeah, my girl check hit. Oh, that's right on time. But they talking about doing some foolishness with the money. Like, come on, doc. You sitting around me, you ain't picked up on that yet, be like, you know what you should have been doing, Christian? Should have been saying, okay, man, we finna have an extra $2,000. Yeah, we cool. Man, I need to throw at least $1,000 somewhere and try to make some money with it. But then, when people paying attention and who ain't paying attention.
So, what are some of the questions that your little ones have asked you that made you say that they're willing to put in the work? And when they do bring an idea to you, what are some of the things that you share with them as far as like the work? Like, okay, I want you to go do this. If you're gonna come to me with this idea, go do
See, the
this.
great thing, I ain't even gotta have that type of conversation with it because they picking it up naturally.
Okay.
They already see me. It's just like how when we was sitting in that room and that guy had his kid flipping that PowerPoint. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You ain't even gotta really have them conversations. They gonna pick it up naturally. Now, when they get to a certain age, then you probably gonna do. But like right now, I ain't gotta do none of that. Like my 7-year-old pick up on a lot of stuff that I'm doing without me having to go into detail, because they see me all they see me all the time. Oh, Dad, I'm doing some real estate. My older one should ask me, I just break the numbers down. Okay, this is what they're gonna pay you. You go get a little job at the fast food restaurant and all that. But guess what? If you got a house and you did this, see, now you go here. See, they pay attention to that. The next thing you know, they'll come back and do something. But guess what? I ain't forcing that on you. My kids like that and all that. But guess what? Oh, they I want to set up a store online. Cause they see how I move. You see what I'm saying? I'm not forcing it. I'm not having to force a conversation on my kids compared to somebody that. This is the problem in our culture. You got people that are doctors or attorneys, but they had this, I'm better than you. I'm this upper echelon of black and you down here. Oh, you can't really talk to my kid, or your kid can't talk to my kid because this family got a master's and most of them, it shouldn't even be like that. I'm around rich white people that don't even talk like that. And they do everything the natural way. So what I'm trying to tell people is once you free your time up and you're around your kid a whole lot, they're gonna pick it up naturally. You ain't gonna have all those issues that you would have working a job. Cause think about it, Chris, when you working a job, your time tied up. Now you gotta ask somebody else when to get out. Think about how many people probably just got off of Christmas and had to go right back to work the next day. On Thanksgiving, had to go right back to work the next day. What time you putting in with your kids? Kids out of school, my kids out of school January 11th. You got that job, what you gonna do? You gonna get up, you gonna eat, what you gonna be ready to do? You gonna be ready to go to bed. What time you putting in with your kids? Then now you're gonna try to force everything on. Now they gonna rebel against you because you forcing it on. That's a huge change to me. Like I got where I'm at, not focusing on the money, but setting the systems up and freeing my time up. I was tired of working at the phone company 17, 18 hours a day. I could have made $100,000 some dollars a year. I was making it 130 by 130, 140. But I had no time to do nothing with my family. I had no time to even enjoy stuff at my house. And that's what most people are doing. And when you get to that point, you should get to that point where you fed up. And you know what I did? Instead of blowing my money and being around the right people, I started taking all that unnecessary money that I was spending, saving it, put it in the business. I was so motivated. After I did that, 3 months later, I wasn't even working for the people no more.
And that's why I tell people with the accountability coaching that the Vault provides, y'all can email over Christian@trustchristian.com. Cornell, within 30 days, you got to change your habit. 60 days, you're digging deep. 90 days, your life should never be the same. When Cornell talk about being able to birth a millionaire in less than 3 months, if you live in the United States, you damn straight could not be working your job in 3 months. I mean, first of all, this is how you know he's a mentor. When someone says they've done it, that's who you deal with, the people that have done it. So, Cordell don't work a job. I've already made y'all aware of this on the podcast. Judge Christian, we don't work jobs. So, okay, Cornell, you say you got off your job in 3 months. Well, shoot, I'm trying to outdo you. I'm trying to be more competitive and get off my job faster. That is the mentality that can be taken, but he did have proper mentorship. He had somebody tell him. At one point, they was like, look, stop talking to me about your idea unless you go do it. Well, guess what? 3 months later, after they said that to him, he wasn't having a need to be there anymore. That's the mentality. But that's the energy that a person has to be at to be able to say, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, which is this person pushing me right now for the next 30, 60, 90 days to success. Not to failure, to success. I'm investing in myself to be successful. Investing in yourself. Now, if you can't take the bet on yourself, how you going to sit here and say somebody else should take the bet on you? How you going to be mad the bank ain't willing to bet on you? The bank asks you, well, how much money did you put into this house? How much money did you put into this business? How much money did you invest in yourself? So you saying you invested more in other people's dreams and goals than you did in yourself? You didn't invest and take a risk on yourself. You take a risk and invest in other people. So why wouldn't you take the risk and invest in yourself? Because it's a fear mentality. You're willing to gamble with other people, gamble on other people with your own money instead of gambling on yourself with your money and other people's money. This is the mentality. Does it have to be strong? It has to be. So, once again, appreciate you for Cornell for coming on here live, man. People came on live, listened in the replay. Appreciate everybody that tuned in live, listening to the replay this far. We're cranking out year-end content because the most people sitting at home, or whether it's because they on lockdown or whatever. So we just enjoying it and having to being able to have the conversation in the public because it's a normal work day for us. It's a normal work day for us. What is it for you? Is it your day off?
It shouldn't be no days off right now. That's the crazy thing about it. It shouldn't be no. This is the wealth change going on. Y'all don't hear what others listening. The proof is in the pudding. Just like how people bought that stock. Proof is in the pudding. It's a virus going on, right, Christian?
Right.
And why I keep hearing all these successful stories of other people that's not sitting around and just prolonging making money? Why Goldman Sachs and give y'all an article and show you they made billions of dollars? You think I'm gonna keep on sitting around and let them just make billions of dollars and I don't see like, okay, they over there getting busy. You know what? I gotta get busy. Christian Cornell gotta get busy.
And that's
look, we up early in the morning looking at stocks. Because this is the type of stuff going on right now. We know like, oh man, I need to get that 3,000% return. They having it. I don't know what they talking about with the virus. Oh, they scaring y'all with the virus and shut down and everything else. Man, I don't pay attention to none of that. None. If people ask me why Atlanta is up and running so fast, it's what? Them people were smart enough not to sit around the whole virus and let somebody take them out. They didn't wait on somebody to tell them something. Guess what? Atlanta's open. You know that.
Yeah.
Atlanta's open. These people still getting their money down here.
Yeah, still getting money. Restaurants or whatever, they getting money.
They getting their money.
Cornell, we got a call coming in. We're going to see who this is. Greetings. Where you calling from? Cut off that episode on the YouTube so we can hear you clear.
Carlos Greaves from Brooklyn, New York.
What's going on, Carlos? How you doing? Cut off the YouTube, man, so we can hear you clear. There's no echo.
Okay, I'll turn it off.
Appreciate you, man. How you doing today?
Actually, absolutely fantastic. First time the notification from the YouTube actually went off. So I think, you know,
it's crazy how
I actually got it. I actually got a new phone just so I can get the notifications done. Like, I'm tired of YouTube playing with me, bro.
Right.
But if Cornell can hear me too?
Yeah.
Mr. Cornell, thank you for your advice. You as well, Trust Christian. You guys have been in my life for about, you know, a few weeks now, and I could say that definitely my mindset has changed over those few weeks. And honestly, I'm trying to get into both your courses. And actually, my question is, is it malleable? Is it applicable? Is it smart to, you know, go and have, you know, an unsecured loan to basically pay for Trust Christian's course and Cornell's course in order to, you know, basically, you know, get my private education? And is there a way that after I get the private education and all that, I can actually take that loan and find some way to, like, you know, position it to where it could become an asset instead of a liability, you know, later down the road? Like, is that a smart idea, you know, or smart step to take in the direction of my private education?
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to answer it, and I'll let Cornell answer it. And I'm going to answer it just like this. What's so crazy is that the hedge fund class that we're taking, the whole goal of the mentor is for you to make the money back for the class. So it becomes basically, because think about it, that means you basically doubled your money. There's no investment that a person can say that, hey, somebody brought me into something and I'm gonna make the money back that I actually put up. That's rare, to be completely honest with you. So when Cornell mentioned that to me one day, I was just like, damn, that's crazy. And the period of time that they're working with you, so their whole goal is to help you make the money that they that you put up, which is the education. Just the education. It's not how much money you actually put up. Now I know that might sound a little odd, like what the hell does that mean? But you're putting up more money than the education. But the cost of the education, they want you to make that much money for sure, like minimum, and that's not a lot. So they want you to make something astronomical, but they even are conservative on your expectations. Like, yeah, we're not going to sit here and promise you anything. They're not even promising you're going to make the money back for the education, but you are. That's their bottom line goal, is minimum education, and then maximum plus is what you put into the account to grow the fund. So that's huge. So I would say that, you know, it's not a specific answer of risk taking. It's a mentality of the person that I'm dealing with. Are they what expectation did they give me of making back my return on my investment? If I'm and not even just that, it's not, to me, I don't want to say it's just about them and their expectation of what they're setting for me. It's my expectations too. What are my expectations? So when you say, well, okay, I'm gonna go into this situation, what is my what Cornell talked about earlier is, what's your vision? What's your long-term vision? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna put this up right now, but how long can I go without this? Can I go, like I say, our mentors, they want us to make it within a certain period of time. So you have a time frame for yourself of saying, okay, I'm going to make it a point to put this up, and I'm going to take this risk, and it doesn't matter. It does matter how long it takes to get it back, and you got a tempered expectation of, okay, by this time I should have this back by then. So now you know what risk to take, whether it is a credit card, whatever type of situation is. You say, okay, I know my upside, and I know how long I can last before my downside wipes me out. You know what I mean? What loss can I take right now? Can you take something being against your credit right now, knowing that you're about to be a millionaire in the next year? Let's be honest with you. Are you willing to take, oh man, my credit's messed up, man. My credit, I messed up my credit. I got a credit infraction for $3,000 because I put it on credit card, or I got $10,000 infraction on my credit card, so because I wanted to do some stuff, whatever, whether investing, whatever it is. And, a year later, I'm a millionaire. People, like Cornell said, we talk to people. People don't believe they can be millionaires, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now. They don't really believe that in their heart. But at the end of the day, we're talking about something that's very realistic. A person leaving their job, that's unrealistic for some people. Oh man, 3 months, man, what the hell you mean 3 months? I ain't even got paid no damn money in real life in 3 months. So what difference does it make if I go 3 months and I don't do it? Well, that's your problem. But there are people that are willing to take that risk, to where they're willing to put up and say, well, yeah, I'll risk $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on a credit card right now, because in 3 months they're not going to have a job. So guess what? Not only do they not have a job, they're not even paying for the debt. Maybe they went into real estate or something, and the property's paying for the debt. So they're literally sitting at home. They got time with their family, whatever it is. But at the same time, they risk 10, 20 on the front end, but they're not even paying the debt down now. They're using OPM to pay down other people's money that they had borrowed in the first place. See, this is a private education, not a public education. So I didn't want to be long-winded, but I did wanted to answer your question with brevity, in the respect of, hey, look, what are your expectations on the return, and how long are you willing to wait before the return? Whereas our mentors, they have an assurance that we're going to make something, but they also have tempered your expectations. So if you lose, they like, look, well, I told you this is what you're going to lose too. So it's a tempered expectation of how to go about doing that. Cornell, you got an answer to that? What would you say? I know he asked the question a second ago, but what do you remember, Cornell? I know he muted out here for a second, so Cornell,
I can't quite hear.
Leaked correspondence from February of this year between the Pentagon and the Georgian Ministry of Health reveals that private American companies also perform work under the military program at the laboratory. This email, for instance, dated February 16th, 2018, has been sent by an employee of a private contractor, TMC Global Professional Services, on behalf of the Pentagon unit at the Lugar Center to ask for a meeting with the Georgian Minister of Health. The private company has been awarded 2 contracts in 2016, totaling $3 million for support services at the Lugar Center. Interestingly, the same year, TMC was also awarded another $975 million contract for counter-narco-terrorism by the Pentagon. Why is a company which works for the Pentagon on a worldwide program to counter narcotics has been given concurrently work at a military laboratory which burns chemicals at night? Local residents are worried about what chemicals are being burned secretly at night, and what waste is being emptied into the river and causes the smell of rotten eggs in the residential area around the laboratory.
И все закрыто, охрана, все. А чего вы боитесь? Если у вас все нормально, почему вы боитесь? Я помню, один раз вечно 4 труб одновременно дым шел днем, а потом днем перестали. Выпускают все это ночью, чтобы люди не видели.
Ой, вы знаете, как плохо. Так эти запахи идут, специфические запахи вообще нас. Иногда так мучают, беспокоит ночью особенно. И потом еще после дождя тоже эти запахи вообще нас очень мучают. А кто спрашивает, мои хорошие, кто нас спрашивает, мы маленький народ.
Это засекреченная лаборатория, где проводятся непонятные испытания, и нужно на это обратить внимание мировым.
Internal documents and correspondence between the Ministry of Health of Georgia and the U.S. Embassy to Tbilisi show what experiments have been conducted at the Lugar Center. Leaked documents reveal that the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi transports pathogens, as well as frozen human blood samples, as diplomatic cargo. The American diplomats claim the human blood is needed for research purposes in connection with an American program on hepatitis C in Georgia. Diplomatic cargo shipments are exempt from inspection and taxes, according to instructions by the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which oversees and funds the laboratories. Biological material for the needs of the program must be shipped as hand-carrying items to the U.S. embassies. In the case of import to Russia, the biological material must be carried by diplomats in a diplomatic pouch and sealed as diplomatic cargo. Other instructions to U.S. personnel working under the military program prohibit the use of prostitutes, as foreign security services are known to use the enticement of such relations to exploit foreign officials. The document reads,
I don't know everything about this center because it is very secret and citizens don't know everything about this center. I don't like this, but our country takes this center very secret. Only I know that this place is very secret and nothing more.
Tasked with the program are biologists from the U.S. Army Medical Research Unit, Georgia, along with private American contractors and the U.S. Center for Disease Control. Certain zones of the laboratory are classified zones and are accessible only to American citizens with security clearance. They are
every product and service that I bring listeners is a product and service that I use, that I believe in, that has great customer service and great results, because I am not fly-by-night. I'm not a globalist that wants to rip you off and then launch a new scam and rip you off again. And so over the years, we had a lot of great sponsors, but they got threatened, they got harassed, they got bullied, and so they went away. So in the last decade, I went to selling products directly to the listeners that we can buy and produce and make and certify and know are great. But because of supply chain breakdowns and because of the increased cost of materials and everything else, that model now has been failing, and InfoWars hasn't had the funds to operate. And we've gotten into the red summit, and that's been a crisis. But then about a month ago, I locked myself in my office for 8 hours. And I didn't distract myself. I turned off the computers. I turned off the phone. I wouldn't let myself have anything but my coffee maker and some bottled water. And I just wrote down notes of what do I use? What is a great product that will be a sponsor and isn't afraid? And I came up with just a few ideas, and they were all great ideas, but just a few ideas. But the number one idea was something I've experienced and my family's experienced and my listeners have experienced. We've had some of these sponsors in the past, of the groups out there that help people do tax preparation, groups that help give people tax advice, people that actually let the public know about the loopholes that the establishment and the elite use, but that the IRS bureaucrats don't want the people to know. So I thought, who was that group that was highly rated that I used years ago and that some of my family used, and that was actually a sponsor many years ago on some of the radio stations I was on? And I was like, it's American Tax Solution. So I went and looked them up, and I'm like, wow, highest rating, Better Business Bureau. I've used them, families used them before. Why didn't I think of this? They've got all these dozens of great services at very, very low prices. In fact, when they come in and help you with the IRS, negotiate on average $10,000 down to $1,000, $100,000 down to $10,000, they just get part of that savings for themselves, and that's how they fund themselves. So you're not out any money, you're just getting the savings. And so I reached out to them, and immediately they said, Alex Jones, let me call my manager. The next day, the owner calls. Huge listeners, huge patriot, populist, Republican donors, daily listeners of the show. Boom. A month later, they come on the show, one of their lawyers, super popular, people love it. Because you're getting a high-level tax firm with lawyers, CPAs, and others that just cut right to the chase with the information. They don't rope-a-dope like other big tax firms or law firms or groups. They just give you the knowledge very, very quickly that you need. And it is a one-stop shop. So visit jonestaxrelief.com today and start your journey towards being informed about this critical issue of taxation in America. And you can also call the toll-free number that's on your screen, 833-900-4285. Ladies and gentlemen, I use these folks. They're amazing. You are literally like a blind man rock climbing or something if you don't have these folks. Don't go at it alone. Get the real experts who are also supporters of the broadcast today.
Deputy Director of the U.S. Army Medical Research Unit, Georgia. The American military scientist drives a diplomatic car and enjoys diplomatic immunity without being a diplomat.
We sold this car last day, and you're here again, so you're working here. You're from the U.S. Embassy. What are you doing here at the center? Are you scientist? You're a scientist?
Joshua Bast is an entomologist and researches insects, according to a video released by the U.S. Embassy to promote the peaceful purposes of the otherwise military program of the U.S. in Georgia. Why does an entomologist work for the U.S. Army, and why is he accorded with diplomatic immunity? Entomological warfare is a type of biological warfare that uses insects to transmit diseases. Georgia borders on the U.S. main rival, Russia. Moscow has repeatedly voiced concerns about the potential development of biological weapons near Russian borders, including the spread of diseases through insects.
Понятно, что в таких центрах могут проводиться исследования не только в интересах санитарно-эпидемиологического благополучия населения соседних с нами государств, поэтому сам факт масштабной медико-биологической деятельности Пентагона именно у границ России вызывает у нас особое беспокойство. Возникает законный вопрос об истинных целях такой военно-биологической активности Соединенных Штатов Америки.
Such fears are not groundless, considering a recent U.S. patent for a toxic mosquito aerial release system granted by the United States Patent and Trademark Office in 2014. The invention includes a drone that can release infected mosquitoes. According to the patent documents, it is capable of delivering lethal and non-lethal toxins, including an agent that can be carried and administered by a mosquito. The inventor of the drone for releasing the toxic mosquitoes, S. Mill Calvert, has patented 42 similar military inventions for the U.S. Army and Special Forces, including stroke-inducing bullets in a span of just 2 years from 2013 to 2015. A person with such a name, however, does not exist in the U.S. Citizens Registry. The U.S. patent lawyer, Louis Ventre, who filed the application, declined to comment on if the name was a pseudonym and who his client actually was. Documents show a number of Pentagon projects involving insects as possible vectors of diseases in Georgia. In 2014, the Lugar Center was equipped with an insect facility and launched a project on sandflies in Georgia and the Caucasus. In 2014 to 2015, sandfly species were collected under another project, Surveillance Work on Acute Febrile Illness, and all female sandflies were tested to determine their infectivity rate. A third project, including sandflies collection, studied the characteristics of their salivary glands.
I have really a very serious concerns that nobody in the government in reality knows what is going on inside. Because as I know, in general, in some places, because there are some, as I understand, there are some different levels inside of this object. There are some levels where Georgians have an access and they are working, but there are some levels where Georgians have no access. And of course, it's not normal when there is some serious object in your country where citizens of your country have no access. Exception could be only diplomatic representation and embassies, which is normal for international law and for every country, but not with secret objects which exist. I think this should be a matter of our concern.
The Pentagon scientists have performed experiments involving tropical mosquitoes and ticks in Georgia. 21,590 ticks were collected for DNA databasing for future studies at the Lugar Center under the Pentagon project Genetic Diversity of Crimean Congo Hemorrhagic Fever Virus and hantaviruses in Georgia. The Pentagon projects involving ticks coincide with an inexplicable outbreak of Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, which is caused by infection through a tick-borne virus. In 2014 alone, 34 people became infected, along with a 4-year-old child, 4 of which died. A total of 60 cases and 9 fatalities have been registered in Georgia since 2009, according to leaked emails between Lugar Center Director Amaran Gamkrelidze and Minister of Health of Georgia, David Serchenko. These worrying statistics have been hidden from the public. Joshua Bast is not the only U.S. non-diplomat working on the Pentagon program who has been accorded diplomatic immunity. There are 5 diplomatic cars in the car park of the laboratory, all of them with registration plates of the U.S. Embassy.
U.S. civilian personnel performing work at the Lugar Center have also been given diplomatic immunity, including diplomatic vehicles, although they are not diplomats. This practice is often used by the CIA to provide cover for its agents.
I don't think that any Georgian can answer, because it's just most of the researchers which come here from whatever, they are assigned to the embassy.
How can you control what foreigners with diplomatic status are doing at the Lugar Center?
There is no need of controlling. You are doing things together. I mean, what's the application of any diplomatic status there? I don't see any point, sorry. It's a diplomatic status because of the living conditions here, but has nothing to do with the work. Any diplomatic structures or whatever type of the protection the diplomats enjoy has nothing to do with whatever work is done in the Lugar Center.
The Defense Threat Reduction Agency has outsourced much of the work under the military program to private companies, which are not accountable to Congress and which can operate more freely and move around the rule of law. Leaked documents show that one of the companies involved in the program in Georgia is Booz Allen Hamilton. In June 2013, Edward Snowden, at the time a Booz Allen employee contracted to projects for the National Security Agency, publicly disclosed details of the classified mass surveillance and data collection programs of the U.S. around the world. Snowden's former employer, Booz Allen Hamilton, has been awarded 5 lucrative contracts by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency since 2010 until 2022, totaling at least $358 million for intelligence support services.
You know, if these people are against the country, they're against the government. This is something that's not our place to decide. The public needs to decide whether these programs and policies are right or wrong.
The Pentagon scientists can work in direct violation of international law. Under a 3-year agreement between the Walter Reed's Army Institute and the Georgian National Center for Disease Control, the Pentagon has been given full access to the local collection of deadly bioagents in order to study them. These are agents which can cause anthrax, tularemia, brucella, and the plague. According to the agreement's provisions, international law is not applicable to this agreement. The parties agree that no court, tribunal, or international entity has jurisdiction or authority to consider or provide judgment. Bulgarian reporter Diliana Getiniera asked the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Health, Robert Kadlec, for a comment during a conference on biological weapons at the European Parliament in Brussels, and was immediately expelled from the conference.
Why has the Pentagon been operating military laboratories in 25 countries, bordering on the U.S. main rivals, Russia, China, and Iran? And why has the number of deadly outbreaks in all those countries increased dramatically since the start of the military program of the United States in these countries?
I will just say unequivocally and undeniably, the U.S. does not have a military biological weapons program. Period. End of statement. Number 2, we have been working, and I do know for the Department of Defense, they've been working with partners in parts of the world to ensure that those laboratories, and we train them on how to do diagnostic tests on these diseases, to ensure that they can manage them and also safely secure those pathogens so they're not accessible by terrorists or by criminals who would do ill with them.
While all these projects classified information, all these laboratories of the Pentagon in 25 countries across the world, why are they classified information?
They're not classified. They're openly available to anyone who wants to look at them.
No, I tried.
Okay.
No, this is not true. They're classified information.
No. You had your chance. It's not an investigation here. I'm very sorry.
Why are you talking about?
Of course, but I will not let you.
Why can't
I will not give you the word like this. We try to answer your questions, but that's not the place here. Case closed. Thank you very much.
Just one more question.
No more questions. You can take questions right now.
What is the need of military biolaboratories of the United States in 25 countries across the world?
I can't answer that question. That's not his capacity.
This is public area. I can use the elevator.
Sorry, not this one. This one's full.
No, it is not full. Please, I can use the elevator. Come.
No more questions, though.
Why not?
Okay, we're either going down.
Why is the Pentagon investing $65 million in gene editing?
I'm sorry.
The gene editing is part of these programs. Can you answer why?
Documents reveal some of the projects funded by the Pentagon. Among them, projects related to Russia. The U.S. Air Force has been specifically collecting Russian RNA and synovial tissue samples, raising fears in Moscow of a covert U.S. ethnic bioweapons program.
Вы знаете, что биологический материал собирается по всей стране. Причем по разным этносам и людям, проживающим в разных географических точках Российской Федерации. Вот вопрос, вот это для себя зачем делают? Делают целенаправленно и профессионально. Ну, мы такой вот объект очень большого интереса.
The Pentagon has also studied the Russian anthrax strain at the Lugar Center, for which Russia has a vaccine, as well as the genome sequence of the Russian Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus strain. Leaked emails between the director of the Lugar Center and the Minister of Health of Georgia, David Serginko, reveal an ongoing Pentagon project on Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever in the country. The Minister of Health of Georgia, David Serginko, did not respond to the questions sent via email by Diliana Getigneta. The leaked emails, though, show the minister's reaction to this question. He has forwarded the email to his press center, swearing at the journalist in Georgian. Who is she, and where did she get my email from? Coincidentally, the journalist was locked up in the bedroom of her rented flat in Tbilisi while sleeping and was freed by emergency services who accessed the locked room through the roof. The police have no answer as to who had broken into the flat, locked the journalist in, and why, given that nothing had been stolen.
Why are you filming us?
Probably someone doesn't want journalists to investigate what chemicals are secretly burned at night in the Pentagon-funded laboratory, and why a private contractor on a Pentagon program to combat narcotics happens to work also at the same laboratory.
After the Russians secured Pentagon-run biolabs in Ukraine, the U.S. Embassy was caught deleting proof of this from their website. And when the Russians shared documents showing the Ukrainian Minister of Health ordering employees of these biolabs to destroy all deadly pathogens, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio asked the U.S. State Department this. Undersecretary Victoria Nuland not only confirmed the presence of the labs, but confirmed that they contain weaponized biological agents that they now fear the Russians will indiscriminately use to start a world war. The Pentagon calls them bio-research labs and containment labs, and claim their clandestine operation is all somehow in self-defense. But they are admittedly creating and storing weaponized biological material. And so these biolabs are in violation of Article 1 of the Prohibition on Biological Weapons. During the past couple years, citizens of the world have been getting an advanced education on bioweapons. And the very same crooks we see foisting the Great Reset medical tyranny are involved in the Ukrainian bioweapons labs. This is all being paid for with tax dollars through the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA. U.S. company Black & Veatch has been working closely with the DTRA building bioweapons labs since 2003. Black & Veatch share an office in Kiev with Metabiota, who signed an $18.4 million contract with Black & Veatch in 2014. Metabiota got their start in 2015 with funding from Hunter Biden's Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, who gave Metabiota $30 million to help protect the world from the spread of epidemics. This is the very same Rosemont Seneca that was mysteriously wired $3.5 million from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. And the very same Metabiota partnered with Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance.
the group that Dr. Fauci used to funnel money to the Wuhan lab for gain-of-function research in 2014. In 2014, Metabiota, EcoHealth Alliance, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology were together researching infectious diseases deriving from Chinese bats. Metabiota is working with known CIA front In-Q-Tel. It is funded by the U.S. Department of Defense, the NIH, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Google, and the National Geographic Society. Metabiota's founder, Nathan Wolf, sits on the board of EcoHealth Alliance and is a member of DARPA's Defense Science Research Council. In 2012, he wrote a book titled The Viral Storm, The Dawn of a New Pandemic Age, wherein he thanked his friends, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and biotech venture capitalist Boris Nikolic. Boris Nikolic was named Jeffrey Epstein's successor executor upon his death. Wolf has also been seen hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell on multiple occasions. He is also one of Klaus Schwab's young global leaders, trained on how to enact the Great Reset agenda being directed by the World Economic Forum. Russia claims the Pentagon has over 30 biolabs in the Ukraine alone. China claims they are operating 336 biolabs in 30 different countries. And now, members of our corrupt U.S. government are saying this is all a Russian conspiracy and that we should soon expect a false flag attack from Russia.
If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese. For years now, Russia has made verifiable claims that the U.S. is running secret biological weapons labs around their borders. And while Western media now claims this to be misinformation, back in 2013, they reported on it. While the United States and Murder Incorporated have been waging illegal wars all across the world in the name of democracy, Russia has been quietly selling energy and minding their own business. And according to National Geographic, this was the reason why the Pentagon was building these bioweapons labs in the first place, because Russia was entirely quiet on the subject and the U.S. wanted to get ahead of them. The initial biolab in Kazakhstan was built by the U.S. for $100 million to store high-risk diseases such as plague and anthrax, and was hoping to attract scientists who might otherwise create biological weapons of mass destruction for someone else, in order to keep the world safe. The U.S. has since built several labs in Kazakhstan. Most recently, a biosafety level 4 lab to be completed in early 2022. As early as 2004, the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, Wtdta, began creating a network of biolabs for infectious diseases in Uzbekistan. And within a few years after operations began, outbreaks of unknown diseases were reported in the same areas as the labs. In Georgia, leaked documents show that the U.S. Embassy has been transporting deadly pathogens and human blood as diplomatic cargo in a scheme where private U.S. contractors working for 3 different U.S. biolabs have been given diplomatic immunity to do so. Shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, At War Clandestine released a video with maps of U.S. biolabs matching up with maps of the recent attack, suggesting that Russia was securing these top-secret biolabs. Western media claims this is false, but fails to debunk it. And once the video goes viral, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine is caught deleting evidence of these labs from their website. but not before an independent journalist was able to copy documents showing 11 Ukrainian biolabs funded by the Pentagon. The Russian embassy to Bosnia has accused the U.S. of filling Ukraine with biolabs, which were very possibly used to study methods for destroying the Russian people at the genetic level. And we now know that these so-called mRNA vaccines are destroying people at the genetic level. We now officially know that COVID-19 is a man-made bioweapon. We know that it was funded by elements of the NIH and Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance. We know that it was made in Wuhan, China. And so, what isn't threatening about the U.S. encircling Russia with top-secret biolabs? And who on earth thinks it's a coincidence that everyone involved in the United Nations Great Reset are now the Ukraine's greatest allies of all time? The mercenaries and war profiteers in America are getting excited about making short-term profits off the dead. But the only ones who will benefit from this war are the crooks at the top, who have been caught committing the most heinous crime against humanity in all of recorded history. And the only righteous way out of this is to hold these crooks accountable. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese. There are millions now waking up to the fact that they have been used in some sort of nefarious scientific experiment, and many are suffering serious physical side effects as a result. We can clearly see.
I wanted to spend just a few minutes with the listeners who are the best people on earth. I think the listeners and viewers of this broadcast objectively have supported and have amplified and who have prayed for this broadcast, that you are the most effective, best people in the world. The point is that we're not funded by the globalists. We're funded by listeners and viewers like you, and we're doing more important work than we have ever done on air at this point. And the world is listening, and the world is watching, and we're taking on the corrupt power structure, and we're in their face. So when I say I admire this audience of activists, when I say you're the best people, it's not some fake globalists worshiping each other, because all that's just talk. With you and I really mean it. I mean, you folks are awesome, and I appreciate your support, because you're supporting yourself while you do that. And I just want to stay in this fight. And the fact that you keep me in this fight, I love you only second to God and my children. You're right there. It's like God's right here, my children are right there, family, but me, you're that's when you walk up and thank me in the street, I just go, okay, stop, because it's like me looking in the mirror thinking myself, we are in this together. So I want to encourage all the viewers, all the listeners to be part of history and to get t-shirts and books and films and amazing supplements and products at InfoWarsStore.com, because that's where you get great products that edify you, make your life better and healthier, and that's where you fund the InfoWar, a 360 win. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And you know, we're entering the thick of the battle right now, and things are so intense, but as bad as the attacks are, the successes are even way bigger. So I understand that's how this alchemy works. And I understand no pain, no gain. But I'm willing to go through the pain. I just need you to carry us to the next level. So thank you for your financial support while you get great products at InfoWarsStore.com.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
It's Sunday, March 20th, 2022. You have found the embattled, bloodied, punished, but in ways stronger than ever, tip of the spear, promoting truth, justice, and a human future. I'm going to be live here this evening with an incredible 4-hour broadcast, not just my own Sunday show, 4 to 6 p.m., but Sunday Live, normally hosted by Owen Schroyer. I'll be hosting that as well. We have a special guest in studio coming up I'll tell you a little bit about later. Every time I start the broadcast now, I tend to say, man, I've got to really be good today and try to cover all this because it's all so incredibly important. And we're definitely going to be doing that today. But here's the show broadcast headline today that I really think tells you everything you need to know. And when I make a statement like this, I put a lot of calculus and a lot of pieces of information into it that would take days to lay out. But I'm going to lay out some of it. But what you need to know is that the Russians are warning that the deep state, the globalist deep state, we'll put the show headline up, it's live, that the globalist deep state may be planning a massive false flag by assassinating U.S. officials, including Joe Biden. Now, when I saw that Russian report, and I noticed that Biden is going to be in Europe for the NATO summit this week starting today, and you add everything else together, I have always believed, and you know this, that they're going to assassinate Biden. It never made sense how they were running a corpse. It never made sense how he would destroy them in the ratings. It never made sense about what would they do before the midterms. But by killing him, just like John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln, you will then have the, quote, Reconstruction 2.0 or martial law in America, which will also then be blamed on the Russians. So they'll have a domestic crackdown. They've already geared up with January 6th as the cover story. They'll have an international crackdown going after the Russians and others and really hand dictatorial power to the deep state and the Democrats, which they will never relinquish again. The perfect false flag would be the assassination of Biden. Now, for those of you that don't know how World War I started, I'm going to get into it when we come back, but this is a big, big deal. So there's your full show headline that everybody should share, like World War III depends on it, like stopping World War III depends on it, because I don't just say things like this to be a fiction writer. This is a real possibility. Emergency Sunday broadcast, Russia warns deep state may assassinate Biden, trigger massive escalation and war. So, we're talking about a massive escalation in the war. And that's what we're dealing with as a society and as a civilization. And I don't just believe what the Russians say. I know the New World Order's history. I know how British intelligence, that's kind of the key operating system of this, operates. And the minute I saw that this morning, I got chills up and down my spine. And that's when my spirit, or subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is much more powerful than your conscious mind, says, look at this. Because the Russians didn't say they think they're going to try to kill Biden. I'm saying that. They said they got intel that they have plans to kill senior diplomats and U.S. officials. Well, who's more senior than the puppet Biden? And then I saw the other headline on Infowars.com that he's going to Europe for the NATO summit. This is when you get a missile fired or a car bomb, something like that. And then they'll claim it's some multinational pro-Russia group that's involved in it. And then we're off the races, ladies and gentlemen. We need to pray for Joe Biden's safety. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, InfoWarsStore.com is offering the biggest sales in its over 20-year history. And that is because the economy is breaking down, inflation is exploding, the supply chains have broken down, and InfoWars is having serious trouble making its payroll and paying for operations. And I do not want to implode or downsize in the face of the globalists making their main move. InfoWars, it's paradoxical, is more popular than ever. It is reaching more people than ever, despite the censorship. But because of cost increasing and having to run our own infrastructure and pay for our own bandwidth and everything else, we are running out of money. So listen, up to 75% off at InfoWarsStore.com on things like amazing Patriot Patriot t-shirts that help spread the word and fund the operation. On supplements, on books, on films, everything is 25 to 75% off right now. The biggest sale in our history at InfoWarsStore.com. Thank you for your support.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
March 20th. Thank you for joining us on this live Sunday transmission. I am your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be live here for the next 4 hours this evening. This is going to be an incredibly important transmission. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, here's where we are. The planets have aligned politically, militarily, economically, and everybody keeps asking the question, how can Biden, who can't finish a sentence, how can Biden, who has under 30% approval ratings, even in cooked polls that are pro-Democrat, means his real approval is about 15%, how can the deep state grab victory from the jaws of defeat? And I've said this over and over again the last year. Assassinate Biden. I'm not calling for assassinating Biden, but the globalists wind up some lunatic, have the security stand down, or detonate a truck bomb, or poison him. There's a million ways to do it. And then blame it on their political enemies, or just say he died in his sleep, because then that turns him into a victim, and now there's a big funeral, and now they can slip in the next puppets that they want into place. But you talk about dumb, dumber, and even more dumb. If he dies, then you get Kamala Harris, and then after him rolls in the Speaker of the House, and you know who that is, Nancy Pelosi. And these old crypt keepers, these Skeksis, are not going to turn loose of power. So I've really been talking about the danger of them assassinating Biden in the last year. It's the only way it fits, so that they can, again, push forward their agenda. And my mother hardly ever gets in my face about something, but when she does, she's always right. And she's been ranting for a good 6 months when I see her that they're going to kill Biden. She just sees it in all the tea leaves. She sees it in the preparation. She sees it all over the place. And my mom and dad are just as smart as I am and have always had a lot of foresight. But I think a lot of you see this as well. I mean, how do they get rid of him? Does he step down? No, he'll never do that. He'll still be seen as evil and corrupt, and all the bad things he's done, he'll still get the blame for. But if he's assassinated, they can demonize their political opposition, and they can expand wars, and they can have the giant police state they've set up as a bear trap close on our leg. And then I saw these big articles today on Infowars.com. Senior advisor to Zelensky invites Biden to Kiev next week if he's brave when the commander-in-chief visits Europe for NATO summit next week. Ukrainian official number 2 under Zelensky invited President Joe Biden to visit Kiev next week amid Russia's ongoing invasion of the country, saying one should not be afraid if you're brave, said Zelensky's chief diplomatic advisor. So, if you're brave, Caesar, you'll go during the Ides of March to the Roman Forum. You'll be safe there, and you know what happened to him. Warning, global deep state may be planning assassination of President Biden when he travels to Europe next week. An excellent article that Jamie White and I put together this morning that deals with all of this and gives you some historical examples of what's been going on and unfolding, including how World War I started in 1914 when groups connected to the British Secret Service of the Black Hand subgroup, Serbia's Black Hand, connected to the British Secret Service, assassinated the king of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, which, of course, Germany was the capital of, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. So that's a big deal. All the same parallels of that war. And why are we talking about that? Well, again, Biden's traveling to NATO next week, to Brussels, Belgium, and we've got the Russians warning and saying that they have intercepted and arrested Canadian intelligence operatives high level that tell them that is the next big shoe to drop, that there are plans to assassinate American officials and leaders to be blamed on Russia. Now, would Russia assassinate U.S. leaders? No, that would blow up in their face. Would Russia have a motive to kill U.S. leaders? Absolutely not. They would turn them into the devil overnight. That's the worst possible move. Well, then who has a motive to kill U.S. diplomats? Who has a motive to kill? Well, you know who. The deep state. They have the motive for all of that. And so I see that as them killing two birds with one stone, and as a very, very serious concern to me. Let me go ahead and just do this. Let me just go ahead and read this article from Infowars.com as it covers all the facts. Warning, global deep state may be planning assassination of President Biden when he travels to Europe next week. Russia has warned Zelensky government planning false flag against U.S. government leaders in pretext to expand war. Joe Biden has become a liability for the global deep state, which is why they may try to have him assassinated as a way to accelerate a world war against Russia. Ukraine President Zelensky, chief diplomatic advisor, on Saturday asked Biden to visit the embattled city of Kiev next week during his trip to Brussels, saying in a taunting message, "One should not be afraid to if you are brave," close quote. Inviting a sitting president to an active war zone is probably not the wisest idea. Yeah, anybody asking you to do it wants you to get killed. Coincidentally, this comes amid reports by the Russian military that they have received intelligence of Ukrainian nationalist hardliners planning to target U.S. and Western military installations. The officer spoke about a planned terrorist acts in Lvov, the city's Russian language name, against employees and facilities of the diplomatic missions maintained by the U.S. and other Western nations, said Russia's defense minister, Major General Igor, I'm not going to butcher that. What's more, the Ukrainian government is apparently aware of this plot, but is doing nothing to stop it. I'd like to stress that Kiev regime is fully aware of the plans abroad by nationalists, but is doing nothing to prevent them, he said. The plans being harbored by nationalists. The state, when the stage appears to be set to have Biden assassinated during his diplomatic visit to Europe. Such a scenario would echo the prelude to World War I, where Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination by Serbians' Black Hand terrorists in 1914 was actually orchestrated by British Secret Service. Biden's assassination could potentially be extremely useful to the globalists, not just as a spark for global war, but also alleviate political fallout for the Democrats in America. The Democrats are getting dragged down politically because of Biden's terrible polling due to his disastrous radical domestic and foreign policy positions. Bracing for massive losses in the incoming midterms, Democrats have even been discussing amongst themselves how best to replace Biden before 2024. At this point, the globalist, Biden is now more useful dead than alive, which is a precarious situation for the whole world. However, in a veiled response to Ukraine's request, Biden's press secretary Jen Psaki said Sunday that Biden would not travel to Ukraine during his visit to Brussels. Biden is instead scheduled to appear at NATO's meeting to discuss ongoing deterrence and defense efforts against Russia and the G7 meeting with European leaders. Hopefully his bumbling European visit will go off without a hitch. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully nothing happens to the satanic pedophile version of Dr. Magoo or Mr. Magoo. Here's the big article. Russia warns of false flag attacks on U.S. diplomats. You should go read the article for yourself on Infowars.com. Some good news. Ukraine and Russia close to agreement on critical issues. Turkey says. We'll see if that turns out to be true. NATO should not expand to the east, says top Chinese diplomat a day after Xi and Biden had talks. Russian defense minister says over 100 Ukrainian covert op troops and foreign mercenaries eliminated west of Kiev in a huge weapon cache that the West admits was blown up. Excellent article at Zero Hedge by Chris Hedges, also on InfoWars. Waltzing towards Armageddon. You need to go read this article. This is very balanced and very accurate. There's another video we're going to be playing coming up with the great Laura Logan knocking it out of the park, explaining what's really going on. That's coming up as well with so much more. Meanwhile, we've got all these former war criminal presidents calling for a big war against Russia. Bush, Clinton, and Obama. We got video of that next segment, and then giant COVID news, economy news, censorship news, and more. California, people are asleep and program controlled. I agree. How do you make the sleeper awaken, William?
Oh, hi, Alex. Thanks for taking my call. Can I plug Alex real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm in my 60s, and I do the work of 25, 30-year-olds, and I work them into the ground, and you want to know why? And I've tested this, and I've taken your B12, and let me tell you, when I don't take it, I pay a price. I really do. I take that B12, and I'm electric, man. I can run 10 miles. I do some pretty heavy work with the highway department. And my friends will attest to the fact that, yeah, for a guy in his 60s, you know, pushing 70, I'm not just blowing smoke here. The B12 saves my life.
The first 10 amendments to our country's Constitution were adopted in 1791. The first of these broadly protects the rights of free speech and free press. Free speech means the free and public expression of opinions without censorship, interference, and restraint by the government. 231 years later, free speech across America is under chronic and insidious attack. GCN is under attack. Your freedom is currently under siege from those who do not want you to know the truth. I'm asking our fellow broadcasters and you to rise up and help us defend our right to continue telling you the truth. Would you like to join us? If so, please consider visiting SaveGCN.com. SaveGCN.com. You may click follow, share, give, and pray. You may select all of those choices. I'm Vincent Finelli.
Our world is so full of hype. We are force-fed, dehumanizing propaganda by the corporate media, by the controlled churches and the universities. And why is this the case? Because we innately, by God, have been given the keys to our own minds, our own psyches, our own souls.
And by connecting to God, we can empower ourselves and transcend the, quote, fallen or sinful state. So the chemicals that we ingest and all the things that we try to bring into our bodies to change who we are only lowering us. They're only making us more depressed. In the end, they're only making us less fulfilled. It is only by going within and really making that connection to God that we can truly empower ourselves. That's why the globalists bombard us with toxins and chemicals to block us getting the normal vitamins and minerals and trace elements our bodies need to be healthy and to be able to basically reach out beyond the third dimension. And that's where the incredible products come in at InfoWarsStore.com. Ladies and gentlemen, InfoWarsStore.com is offering the biggest sales in its over 20-year history. And that is because the economy is breaking down, inflation is exploding, the supply chains have broken down, and InfoWars is having serious trouble making its payroll and paying for operations. And I do not want to implode or downsize in the face of the globalists making their main move. InfoWars, it's paradoxical, is more popular than ever. It is reaching more people than ever despite the censorship. But because of cost increasing and having to run our own infrastructure and pay for our own bandwidth and everything else, we are running out of money. So listen, up to 75% off at InfoWarsStore.com on things like amazing Patriot t-shirts that help spread the word and fund the operation, on supplements, on books, on films. Everything is 25 to 75% off right now, the biggest sale in our history at InfoWarsStore.com. Thank you for your support.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
InfoWars, tomorrow's news today.
If I tried to go over all the fake war propaganda put out by Zelensky in Ukraine, we would never have enough time on air to play it all or go over it all. And the Russians have lied as well. That's what happens in these type of wars. The Russians lied about invading. The Russians lied about the time of the invasion. They lied about how big the invasion would be, because you definitely want to lie if you're about to invade somebody. You don't want them to know. So let's make no mistake, the Russians aren't little saints here either. But the way our media says Zelensky and the Ukrainians are saints, when it comes to lying, it's the slickest, most orchestrated thing I've ever seen. It's just being run by the CIA. And I told you that a month ago. I told you that years ago, because it's on record. But now even the CIA was in Yahoo and Bloomberg, as you know, last week, bragging that they helped overthrow the elected Ukrainian government in 2014 and bragging that they've been in a proxy war on the border with Russia, killing Russians ever since. I don't want my government and my country doing covert wars. The CIA has overthrown hundreds of countries. The Russians have overthrown a couple dozen. They tried to compete with us and they couldn't even do it. And what's our government put in? Authoritarian groups. Zelensky just banned 11 opposition parties. He banned all opposition parties. Pro-Russia, anti-Russia, liberal, conservative, Christian, Catholic, banned. He's a dictator. The Nazis banned all parties but their party. And Putin's done a lot of stuff too, authoritarian censorship. But compared to Zelensky, well, he can't hold a candle up. And the left's like, yeah, ban everybody. He's so great. And I've got stacks of articles and videos here where they have famous models and famous actors in Eastern Europe. I mean, Zelensky himself is a famous guy that would do drag queen shows and gay bondage shows. I mean, that's why they have him compromised and controlled. Not the first time we've seen this. You've seen him dancing in the leather high heels and leather outfits, shaking his ass. But I got stacks of articles here of well-known Ukrainian actresses posing as pregnant women, posing as dead women. I mean, they don't even care because it's for the rest of the world. And I've got them right here in my stack. So that's insulting to me to hear from CNN and ABC News and to hear from the Democratic Party and the neocons like Mitt Romney, that if you question anything like Laura Logan does or Alex Jones does or Tucker Carlson does or Tulsi Gabbard does, you are a traitor. It's treason to not want war with Russia. What it is insanity and totally mindless. So here's a clip from MSNBC, and they've got all these State Department officials and others on there. This is part of the whole piece of how they're the best and their propaganda is the best. Yeah, exactly. So we have a right and a duty to question it. And all my goal here is to just lay everything out the best I can and tell you what I really think's going on. And we got a much better track record in mainstream media, which shouldn't be hard. They try to lie to you. I don't condescend to you like you need me to tell you what to do. I'm going to lay out my best thinking, the best info I've got, lay out the different options and take your calls and have guests on that bring up other options. And we're right 98% of the time or so. So here they are bragging that Zelensky's got the best propaganda.
You also have to figure out a way to tell people about it, right? And I think the way in which this small team of mostly ex-television producers who worked with him for years in Ukraine have fashioned the most sophisticated political communications operation I've ever seen in real time. Every single choice they've made has been brilliant and pitch perfect. And they have played it. They understand that in this world we now live in, this very complicated, fragmented media landscape we occupy, that you got to play it high and low. You got to play insurgent and establishment. You got to do the interview with Lester Holt, but you also got to be on TikTok. You got to be everywhere all at once. He's out there speaking English. He's speaking Russian. He's transmitting on Telegram all day long, messages to different audiences. And then this week we saw him do this global tour for Hearts and Minds. You know, the spring training games in Canada and the British Parliament, and then coming to the big stage of America. And again, with a perfectly executed 16-minute speech with video in the middle of it and a switch to English on the back end. I just don't think I've ever seen anything more masterful purely at the level of performance. Not just a performance, again, got to be a hero to look like a hero. But man, he and his team have done an incredible job making the case for their people and using every media tool and understanding the world we now live in terms of media and digital technology, as well as anybody I think ever that we've ever seen.
So that's called gushing, and that's them telling you what they're doing and how they're doing it. And again, the CIA and the news going, yeah, we overthrew their government. Yeah, we're in a war with the Russians. And so does that legitimize what Putin did? No, but you see why he did it. We would do that. I don't want a war, but it's just bull. And then like, oh, look, the Russians can't get their propaganda together. Oh, look, the Russians, their military isn't that powerful. Putin's already said that. He said, we don't want to fight you. They've cut their defense spending massively in the last decade. They said, we're not in an arms race with you, but you're not moving weapons on our border. And I got to tell the left out there, the average real liberal is against this war, and every conservative I know is against it as well. And people are so sick of our government and see it as so evil that almost everyone I know is pro-Putin. I mean, just everybody. Liberal, conservative, old, young. So their masterful propaganda has failed. I personally am horrified by this whole thing and think Putin got tricked into a trap, and they're having to admit that. And he's getting generals slaughtered, and it's a setup, and the CIA's jamming their communications and flooding the zone with high-tech weapons. And so now this is just going to escalate. So this is not good for anybody except the New World Order, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I got some big clips about the first casualty of war being the truth and about the massive censorship here in America, how it ties into the huge revelations with Hunter Biden's laptop. That's coming up next segment. And then later, I'm going to show you some of the photos and some of the articles where they admit it's fake. Not just the ghost of Kiev being fake, not just Snake Island being fake, not just so much of this being fake, or these Ukrainian militias hiding in hospitals and schools, which they admit they're doing. Those are war crimes right there. But the lying and having the actresses and the actors on record and them admitting that they've got actors out doing it. We're not denying there's a war. We're not denying people are dying. But they are TV producing this, and showing old war footage of him from TV shows he was in as if it's real. They are scripting and producing this. You just saw MSNBC say it. And so this is a very dangerous propaganda game that these individuals are running here. So we're going to go to break, come back with all this and more. Infowars.com. Tomorrow's news today. We have Alex Stein, the guy with the mega viral rapping videos at city councils, joining us in studio to cover a lot of serious news. He's also a very serious fellow, not just the funny side. Runs the Conspiracy Castle. And then I'm going to be hosting third and fourth hour with just jam-packed information as well. Please stay with us. This is listener participation radio. Please help us get past the censors. Share the links to Band.video. Granny Do-Right. Granny Do-Right, thanks for holding her on the air. Go ahead.
Alex, first of all, let me say I love your products. I am a granny, and for all the senior citizens out there that may have spent a lifetime in the sun like me, I was loaded up with sunspots, or age spots, as they're lovingly called. But since taking your X2 for the last couple of years, my skin is just really gorgeous, actually. People think I'm 55 years old. And I was already taking your other supplements, but I thought, well, maybe that's what I need to do, because I just thought it was a hopeless situation. But when I started taking it, it doesn't happen immediately, but, over a period of time, I started noticing, okay, this is the ticket. This is working. This is wonderful. I don't, I don't have to put on Dermablend anymore, So anyway, it worked wonderfully, and it really has totally cleared up my skin.
So I did it. I signed up for the Austin Marathon. I've been training, probably not as much as I should be, but thank goodness for prayer and thank goodness for InfoWarsStore.com. Before I set out on a run, I throw down some Turbo Force to give me that energy I need to get going. Besides the energy, Turbo Force, it is giving me the vitamins I need, like vitamin C to keep me healthy, and the essential B vitamins, plus the amino acids for sustained energy, giving me the best chance at getting through the training. And then every day now, I'm taking Dr. Jones Soreless. I have bad joints, thanks, Mom. So this is great for giving my joints the extra support they need right now, plus inflammation support and extra flexibility. The quick release capsules help me recover fast so I can get back to the training. Even if you're not crazy enough to take on a marathon, good news, Turbo Force, that can still give you the energy and clarity you need for every day, and Soreless can keep you moving and feeling great at any age.
Taking advantage of one of nature's most nutrient-dense ingredients, VasoBeat will be your new favorite InfoWars Life formula. Using only water and beetroot, VasoBeat is the most concentrated liquid extract of beet on the market. With concentrated beet extract, you can get the high levels of betaine, nitrates, and antioxidants you want to help support a healthy liver, athletic performance, blood vessels, and more. Don't overlook the power of beetroot. Get your naturally occurring potassium, folate, vitamin C, iron, selenium, zinc, vitamin K, and more. With one of nature's greatest treasures in VasoBeat from InfoWars Life today. Taking advantage of one of nature's most nutrient-dense ingredients, VasoBeat will be your new favorite InfoWars Life formula. Using only water and beetroot, VasoBeat is the most concentrated liquid extract of beet on the market. With concentrated beet extract, you can get the high levels of betaine, nitrates, and antioxidants you want to help support a healthy liver, athletic performance, blood vessels, and more. Don't overlook the power of beetroot. Get your naturally occurring potassium, folate, vitamin C, iron, selenium, zinc, vitamin K, and more. With one of nature's greatest treasures in VasoBeat from InfoWars Life today.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones. Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want to stop tyranny? Well, so does he. Live from the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
Welcome back, my friends. All right, let's drill more into this Russia situation that is a black hole threatening to engulf the entire world economy and all of our speech, as well as one of the big casualties of war is also people's freedoms, not just the truth. But Zelensky, who we're told is the most wonderful person the world has ever seen, when he was not doing leather gay bondage shows or transvestite tranny shows on national Ukrainian television. And my point is, he's come out and said, oh, the Russians, they've hacked computers and they're probably about to release me in gay porn. It's not real. Why do you think Arnold Schwarzenegger always comes out for the wars and says, screw your freedom, and does all this? Pornography with him is in the Getty collection on record. 35 millimeter film, all of it. I made a documentary and did some research on Schwarzenegger. He's about 20 minutes of it. And that stuff's out there, and I've seen it, okay? Now, the point is, they'll put that all over the news, and then his tough guy image is gone if you see Arnold Schwarzenegger sucking men off and all the rest of it. And so, you know, I made a film about that. I talked about it. Schwarzenegger didn't sue me, did he? Because he's blackmailed. And listen, here's the issue. I'm not against Schwarzenegger that he made a bunch of his money when bodybuilding wasn't huge, before he made money with Wtdta on supplements. They helped pioneer that because he made money doing that. I'm not putting him down. I'm not judging him. The point is, he's compromised. And it's the same thing with Zelensky. He's compromised. And so everything this guy does is scripted, ladies and gentlemen. Zelensky says World War III assured if negotiations with Russia break down. I didn't just believe Zero Hedge when I saw that. That's in the British and the U.S. news now. He said World War III is going to happen if you don't escalate a war that could cause World War III. Unbelievable information. And then here's some of the photos I showed you. Here's some of the famous models. That's why they hate me talking about crisis actors. Is every event a crisis actor? No. Is every event staged? No. But have there been a lot of cases where the UN got caught in Syria staging chemical attacks that turned out to be fake, confirmed, with the kids on TV that were in the video saying they were hired to do it? Yes. Famous actress, famous model dressing up like she's pregnant in one shot and bombed out of a building in another. And you look at these photos, you can see they're fake to begin with. So when the Russians bomb a military base or whatever, they just have these folks go and crawl around the rubble and act like they've been hurt. Because the Russians are not trying to target civilian infrastructure. That's just a fact, because they know it makes them look bad. Now, I want to hit some really, really important news here that deals with all of this and deals with disinformation. And I want to look at what this is doing to the economy and why the globalists are pushing it so hard, and what oil barons are making money and what oil companies are losing money in this whole artificial energy crisis, where the UN is now saying, take away beef, take away plentiful chicken, take away fish, take away everything but bugs. You knew it was coming. They told you you'll eat bugs and love it. You'll own nothing and like it. It's now official. The UN and the Democratic Party and Bloomberg News is all saying, and Sky News is all saying, that you cannot have cars, you cannot have beef, and beef is racist. That's all coming up next segment. But let's get to some of these clips talking about disinformation. Here is the New York Times in a big article that got praised by CNN and Reason and everybody else. America has a free speech problem. And it shows an evil drain that is asking questions. It says asking questions is bad, and it's a mind drain. And it goes on to say, New York Times deserves free speech, but Alex Jones does not, specifically. They get their speech. They can say whatever they want about Sarah Palin that they knew they were lying about. But if Alex Jones might make a mistake and ever admit it, he's got to be taken off air forever. Oh, the New York Times admits that America has a free speech problem. Oh, the praise from the news. Oh, but here's the New York Post. Spies who lie. The intelligence experts who falsely discredited Hunter Biden's laptop and still won't say sorry? Well, of course not, because the Hunter Biden thing was open and shut from the local store where he left it, never got it. State police had it. Feds had it. Everybody saw it. Everybody had copies of it. And it was him having sex with children. Well, you can't have that. That's used to blackmail Biden and others to control them, just like Zelensky's blackmailed with all of his escapades, reportedly being a nude dancer at a gay bar. So let's go through these clips. Here's the media pundits telling you the laptop didn't exist or was Russian disinfo. And then we have some of the latest developments on that front.
Biden's secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the spring of 2019.
The FBI is now investigating whether those alleged Hunter Biden emails are actually connected to a larger foreign intelligence operation.
They may be related to a foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence operation.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks. All the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation.
Disinformation campaign.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
And here is a flashback, ladies and gentlemen. When Trump brought it up, he was told, you're Russian disinformation. It doesn't exist, even though they always knew it was real. It was always certified as real. The FBI admitted it was real, but it didn't matter. Mainstream media would lie, and then the internet, the corporate giants, big tech would censor anybody that talked about it.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this where you're
going?
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
And then Hunter got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife and so much more. Here is Fox doing a great job. I won't have time to play the full clip, but we'll add it in post later when we archive this. This is Harris Faulkner knocking it out of the park.
I have a different question. How thick are the thieves of truth? Because I remember another media outlet, and let's go ahead and throw them in as a media outlet and not some just outlier of social platform, Twitter. Because remember, they want to put their thumb on the scale about what is factual and what is information and what is disinformation and what is disqualification, all of that. So I guess they think they're journalists. So let's just do the mind experiment for just a second and pretend like they're journalists. So how thick are the thieves of truth? Because if you even tweeted, retweeted, talked about tweeting the New York Post true and real story about Hunter Biden, his ties with energy, right? Oil companies, and the millions, potentially billions of dollars that were wrapped up in deals with him sitting on energy boards with no prior work experience to do so. In an admission on 60 Minutes, he said, I used my dad's name. So we know the tying together.
So we know that they were always compromised, and the corporate media with big tech and the whole system suppressed that news, kept it from the public. The FBI did nothing. The Justice Department did nothing when it's him having sex with his niece on video. And it's him raping women and underage Chinese girls and snorting cocaine off their rear ends and everything else. And I refuse to look at it. I talked to journalists that went through it, but I'm not even sure it's legal to even look at that stuff. So we never opened it. We just went to the sites that blurted out and showed it. It's all confirmed, and it's unbelievable because I've never looked at child porn by, even an investigation. I'm not looking at it. Thank God I've never seen it. I've never seen all this other stuff that goes on out there either. And I find myself...
Our world is so full of hype. We are force-fed dehumanizing propaganda by the corporate media, by the controlled churches and the universities. And why is this the case? because we innately, by God, have been given the keys to our own minds, our own psyches, our own souls. And by connecting to God, we can empower ourselves and transcend the quote.
Today's webinar is taking place on May 2nd, 2017. At this time, I would like to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. Our speaker today is Dan Lias. Thank you, and welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you all who are participating by webinar today on this presentation dealing with trusts. Somewhat like Austin Powers, allow myself to introduce myself. My name is Dan Lias. I'm the transactional business consultant for CT here in the Midwest region, primarily stretching from Michigan down to Oklahoma. And I've been in this position for approximately 8 years or so. So again, thank you for all attending for today. And, and really what today is about is trusts and being able to trust yourself with trust, for a lack of a better term. Trusts are an increasingly common in terms of our filing and then subsequently our searching. So CT thought it was important that we try to put out a presentation here for the next hour or so to kind of discuss the three main topics around trusts, which is, as you see from today's agenda, the basics, filing and searching. Certainly the most important thing with trust, just like it is with any UCC document, is making sure that you are filing correctly, not only with the proper name, which is the significant trust, with trust is the issue, but also in the proper location. And again, before we get into that filing, we want to touch on the basics to kind of get that ground floor kind of established, and then get into filing, and then certainly talk about searching at the end. The thing about searching is that if you filed properly and you filed in the right location, searching kind of just flows naturally from that. So we'll be probably spending more of our time on the first two parts of the agenda, which deals with the trust basics and also with filing. So why trusts and why Article 9, as you see from our next slide? We start with is why we create an entire presentation on trusts under Article 9, like why are we here? And as I already stated, I mean, one of the main reasons is that we just see more trust work out there. There are more and more filings that are connected to that. But in addition to that, we also see with that number of increased in trusts being filed, the questions have also increased and multiplied. Trusts have been an issue for our UCC clients since actually prior to the amendments of 2010, but in 2010, we had the changes in 2001 where we thought we made some pretty substantial changes in terms of trust filings. The changes in 2010, I think, certainly helped clarify them. But, it was a shift, just like we saw in so many things in 2001 and then subsequently in 2010. We changed how we file and deal with trusts, right? And so the 2001 amendments changed the inquiry pertaining to trust from the identity of the debtor to the status of the collateral, right? And some of this is going to sound somewhat similar to what we deal with corporations. So the identity of the debtor, whether it's the trust, the trustee, the beneficiaries, all that was no longer as relevant after 2001 and then certainly 2010 with the changes. So we're back to what is very central to our UCC world, which is the debtor name required by Article 9 is what's vital. That is what is very important, whether it's a corporation or a trust. The name of the debtor is essential for proper filing. And those 2010 amendments just reiterated that, or maybe even spelled it out even more clearly, is the importance of moving away from the identity of the debtor to the collateral and the name of the trust or whatever form that may be. Now, again, I just want to make this clear, though. It is always important to know still the identity of the debtor, as that determines maybe the filing location. However, it is no longer a part of determining what debtor name is used under Article 9. So obviously just keep that distinction in place, is that for the filing, that is one thing, the location is another. So just keep that in mind. So that's why we're here. And like I said, let's start this journey down the road of trust and trust work. So why trust in Article 9? We now move to our trust basics. All right, our next slide. Let's take a look at what our trust basics. All right, Black's Law Dictionary has a definition of trusts, and it's simply this. This is a kind of a common definition, and you guys can certainly read it, but it is, to put it more simply, a trust is a creation of law in which one party, and that's the trustee, has legal ownership of any form of property that has been transferred to him, her, or it, the entity, by the person establishing the trust. The trust assets are invested and are managed for the benefit of one or more beneficiaries. All right, that's really what a trust is. All right, there's a few main. Obviously, we'll be talking about the parties later on, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. Just like when we're dealing with a corporation, is that it may be vast in size and scope, but the actual underpinnings of a corporation are quite simple in terms of the articles of incorporation. The same is true with a trust. I mean, the basic underpinning of this and the intent of it is actually very simple. It's moving money into an organization or entity, if you will, the trust, to help a beneficiary, and it's managed by someone called the trustee. I mean, it's pretty much, it's that simple. It is, again, we get sometimes lost in the size of it, or the number of trustees, or the number of beneficiaries, and all that. But at the core, this stuff around trust, again, is actually fairly simple. All right, so here is our cast of characters when it comes to a trust. As I kind of already alluded to, we have a trustee, the grantor, the estate, and a beneficiary. And so these are, if you want to say this is our Shakespearean tragedy, here's our characters, all right? The trustee, as we can see here, that's the party that has legal control over the trust. And again, that person can take many different forms. That can be an individual. It could be a company that is specifically designed to manage trusts. Certainly